All right, everybody. Thanks so much for your patience. Good afternoon. Bienvenue tout le monde. Thank you so much for joining us in person or via Zoom for We Belong Together, celebrating Quebec's English-speaking communities, a showcase of the exciting projects from year 2 of the Community Initiative. We are streaming live from Concordia University's 4th space, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. Nous reconnaissons la nation Kanien'kehá:ka comme la gardienne des terres et des eaux sur lesquelles nous nous réunissons aujourd'hui. And we make this acknowledgement to bring awareness and understanding of the history of Indigenous peoples and their territories, and as a call to rethink one's own relationship with the city, the land, and environment. So 4th Space is activated daily with all manner of live events to foster engagement around the research projects, initiatives, and dialogues in development across Concordia University and with our external partners. So that's it for me. Have a great event, everyone, and I'm passing it over to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to do this. My name is Catherine Verdon-Diamond, and I will be your host, your MC for this wonderful event. And of course, taking the time here to welcome you online and the few people that we have here with us in 4th Space. We belong together, celebrating Quebec's English-speaking community. So a really important event. So we're not going to waste any time. I'm going to be introducing to you at first, Lorraine O'Donnell, Research Associate, Quebec English-speaking Communities Research Network, and Affiliate Assistant Professor, School of Community and Public Affairs at Concordia University. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Catherine. I'm happy to say a few words on behalf of the QUESCREN team working on the community project. We're pleased to manage and coordinate the overall initiative. QUESCREN is a unit of Concordia University's School of Community and Public Affairs. We provide opportunities to promote the understanding and vitality of Quebec's English language minority communities through research, training, knowledge mobilization, networking, outreach, and special projects like this one. Community is an exciting project now in its 3rd year, which highlights and amplifies a sense of belonging for English-speaking communities of Quebec. Community brings together different partner organizations in the arts, culture, heritage, and education sectors. Their individual projects aim to explore, celebrate, and share the stories that reflect English-speaking communities and build a strong sense of identification with Quebec. Today's event showcases activities that took place during our 2nd year of operations, and we'll see projects carried out by these 6 partners: Black Community Resource Center, English Language Arts Network, Leading English Education and Resource Network, Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network, Seniors Action Quebec, and Youth for Youth Quebec. I'm so happy to say that Community recently started its 3rd year, and we have a new partner, Blue Metropolis. So stay tuned for next year's event celebrating year 3. Beyond its own importance, Community provides opportunities for Concordia University as well. Today's event provides the opportunity for faculty members and staff here to come and meet representatives of all 7 of these community groups. And this can allow for building relationships, collaboration, and maybe even university-community partnerships. Now I'm going to say some words of thanks. Thank you to all the partners for making Community a wonderful success. Collectively, the partners have reached thousands of English-speaking Quebecers around the province with interesting, provocative, and fun events and activities on the theme of belonging. Thanks to all the English-speaking Quebecers who contributed to the projects, agreeing to host, to be filmed, produce works of art and culture, and so on, allowing the community project into your classrooms and otherwise participate. Special thanks to Anna Hunt and Lena Shumarova, my QUESCREN colleagues who coordinate Community, and to communications specialist Joanna Tsunzuris and Anna Houston for promoting the event. Special thanks to Betty Esperanza for organizing today's event, and to publicists at Lisa Lee. Thank you to Catherine for agreeing to be our host today. Finally, we are grateful to Secrétariat aux relations avec les Québécois d'expression anglaise for funding this project, which is now, as mentioned, going into year 3. And on that note, I'm happy to turn the mic over to William Flock. He is the secrétaire adjoint of the Secrétariat aux relations avec les Québécois d'expression anglaise. William?
Thank you, Lorraine, and thank you everybody for coming. I'm just going to maybe add a couple of comments to Lorraine's introduction, which gave us some context for the project. This idea for working in this way and supporting this set of organizations, I think arose primarily out of a series of consultations that the Secretariat conducted in the fall of 2019. We went across Quebec, visited 8 regions, we brought together sector-based groups, and we tried to take the pulse and to receive input from English-speaking community organizations and institutions about priorities and orientations that the Secretariat could take on. We looked at the consultant's report, and we saw that a number of the things that came out as high priority, we already had plans or were already working on. One that kind of was notable by its absence, though, was this idea of a sense of belonging, that people identified sometimes a lower sense of being welcomed and recognized as English-speaking Quebecers. Some suggested there was a link to a readiness for young people to seek opportunities in other provinces. Of course, we can't build a wall and say people, can't move in search of opportunity. Clearly not. But we know that there's a tendency towards outmigration for the English-speaking community over generations, in fact, and certainly in the last few decades. So we thought that it was interesting to kind of try to figure out a way that we could. The other thing I'd mention there is that there was also this sense that the English-speaking minority community didn't feel well understood by Francophone neighbors. So there was this sense that some stories needed to be told. So as a result, we started to interact with some of the organizations to see whether there was an interest in addressing and working on that challenge. And indeed there was. And Lorraine listed the organizations, but from the Black Community Resource Center to Youth for Youth, Seniors Action Quebec, English Language Arts Network, Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network, Learn Quebec, and QUESCREN itself. And as Lorraine noted, Blue Metropolis added to the list for the 3rd version of this project. What we found is there was a great deal of enthusiasm, and as you'll see, a lot of creativity and energy that was released through this project. So we've been very pleased with the results that we've seen so far. And I'm very eager to see what the next iteration will show. But I think it's very important that a community like the English-speaking community, as diverse as it is in its regional realities, in the roots of the folks who come to comprise English-speaking Quebec, that there is this kind of opportunity to tell stories, to go beyond just statistical analyses, which, by the way, I've done enough of in my career. But then to put the voice to the numbers, I think is a really interesting addition. So I think that there's lots of ways that we can learn from this project, celebrate it, but also use it as a way of educating many other kinds of populations who may not fully be conversant with the English-speaking community. So the idea that arts, culture, heritage link into education, that also seems to be a very natural kind of partnership, because I mean, ultimately, we would like to imagine that young people are more aware of the contribution that their communities have made to Quebec, and we think that'll reinforce their sense of belonging and a sense that that they should aspire to also make a future here in Quebec. So it's for all of those reasons that we supported the project, and I have to say that from the Secretary's point of view, we're a small team working mostly out of Quebec City. The idea that we could reach all of the the member organizations in QAHN or ELAN or the various other networks, it would be clearly impossible. So we really value the partnership approach and what each of the organizations who participated, what they brought to the table. And I'd really like to underline the importance of the work that Lorraine O'Donnell and her team at QSCREN have done to really manage this project in the best possible way. So like all of you here today, I'm looking forward to the results. So I'll get out of the way and we can have at it. Thank you.
Turning my mic back on, there we go. Thank you so much for this, William Flock. We're gonna begin with Learn, which is right here to my left. Learn's I Belong project took place in the English language schools across the province with over 1,500 students the ages 10 and up. And students explored the themes of belonging and identity in Quebec society through the arts and acts of community service. So I'm gonna ask you, Mark, we're gonna walk over here to Learn, try to make this as interactive as possible. Emma Legault, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Are you excited?
I am excited.
Okay, so am I. I'm looking at Learn, I'm seeing teach, learn, help. That's the motto right there. So what have you learned about the English-speaking youth while doing this project?
I mean, I think, to be reductive, they're just so beautiful. I think what I've mostly learned from youth is they're pretty uncompromising in what belonging means and what acceptance means. And I think a lot of what youth talk about is how diverse they are. They don't necessarily identify as belonging to a singular community, nor do they want to. I think they want all facets of their identity to be affirmed and to have a place here in this province.
Do you think that the younger generation kind of want to be out of that bubble of belonging to a group? Because you just said that, but some generations ago, it was our parents who were like, it's going to be this way and it's going to be this way. And I grew up in a French household. You know, I'm adopted. Both my parents are white, French, Canadian. And, you know, there were certain rules and certain things about the French language that were a must. And I think now maybe the younger generation is kind of removing themselves from that.
I mean, I think with everything, there's such a wide range, but I think we have a generation in English language schools that are also coming from households like never before, where they have an English-speaking parent and a French-speaking parent.
Exactly.
And they might even speak 3 or 4 languages. So I think what we're seeing is a generation of youth who really want to make room for all of that. And to them, you know, especially in high school, belonging, fitting in, being accepted is top of mind. And it starts in our school systems. And this is the way in which they choose to talk about it. Back to basics. Let's be inclusive of one another. Let's respect and make room for differences is sort of the message that comes out from their videos and their work.
Wow, I love that. OK, alors on va continuer en français.
OK.
C'est correct?
C'est correct.
OK. Un des choix du projet I Belong était de réunir les élèves de français et anglais, leur langue seconde, de différents backgrounds et vraiment les mettre tout ensemble. Comment s'est passée l'expérience? Quels ont été les points vraiment là, plus importants avec les élèves?
D'abord, je vous dirais, c'était comme une super belle expérience pour les jeunes. Je pense qu'ils ont beaucoup aimé ça, se rassembler ensemble et avoir des conversations en français et en anglais en même temps.
OK.
Puis je pense que ce qu'ils ont découvert, c'est qu'eux aussi, ils ont tous la valeur du bilinguisme au Québec. Ils nous disent que pour eux, ça leur permet de participer à la vie quotidienne, puis à participer à avoir des amis anglophones, avoir des amis francophones, de voyager, de travailler, de contribuer non juste à l'économie du Québec, mais aussi à l'économie globale. Fait que je pense que même là, on voit les jeunes qui se retrouvent ensemble, qui se connectent et se ressemblent.
Parce que tu as travaillé quand même avec des jeunes qui sont de 10 ans et plus. Est-ce que tu as vu qu'il y avait des jeunes qui pensaient peut-être que la langue française disparaît un petit peu? Est-ce que c'était dans l'idée des têtes des jeunes ou pas du tout?
De ce que moi j'ai vu, j'ai entendu, pas du tout. Je pense qu'ils voient le français comme un atout du côté anglophone. Puis même les étudiants francophones, ils nous parlent de l'anglais comme un atout qui leur permet d'avoir d'autres amis, d'autres expériences à travers le monde. Alors je pense que les jeunes, ils ont beaucoup affirmé que le bilinguisme, c'est un atout pour eux.
Ah, mais c'est super. Alors, on a un petit peu plus de votre projet. We have a little bit more. I'm going to ask you, Douglas, to play the highlight reel so that people at home and people here can take a sneak peek at what Learn is all about.
To me, belonging means that other people in your community accept you.
When we go to school, we feel blessed because we are a big, beautiful family. We're a mosaic of diversity, which creates the perfect picture.
I feel like I belong in Quebec because of its forest and because of the snow.
I live in Kahnawake, an indigenous territory right in the middle of Canada.
I really like my school, though I don't feel like I fit in a lot.
For folks in the audience, quick question. Which of these words do you feel like apply best to this story?
Anyway, I love what I am and I am what I love and that's why I'm this strong. I love what I am.
Chez nous, on a toujours parlé en français avec ma mère puis en anglais avec mon père. Puis ça continue à être comme ça à ce jour. De proposer un projet qui rassemble une classe de français langue seconde avec une classe d'anglais langue seconde, ben, je trouve que c'est une excellente idée.
Est-ce que c'est important pour toi d'être bilingue?
Je suis nerveuse quand je parle français et j'ai beaucoup d'erreurs des fois.
I'm also nervous when I speak English.
A lot of things that I do right now are because I'm bilingual.
My best friend is Anglophone, so she can help me with my English. So I'm not shy to speak it.
My girls is always there. Anyway, I'm proud of myself, so I hold in my pride and I hope I will live long. When you're down on yourself and there's no one around, you can listen to this song. I'm proud of myself, so I hold in my pride and I hope I will live long. I love what I am and I am what I love. You don't like it so long. If you don't like it so long. If you don't like it so long. Yeah, I love what I am and I am what I love. If you don't like it so long. I love what I am and I am what I love. If you don't like it so long.
What is belonging? Togetherness, to fit in, to feel included, to matter. Yet, you can still feel all these things without the idea of belonging making you feel like you have to fit in and be a part of this togetherness. Because you don't feel like you belong, you want to belong. And honestly, it's bigger than a want.
I speak French in my native language, which is Creole. Now, I'm learning English.
I live in QUESCREN. I am Indigenous and speak English and could understand French and Mi'kmaq.
My friends and family are very important to me. One of my moms was born in Ontario and the other one was born in Quebec.
When people make me feel like I belong by being friendly to me, I feel appreciated and loved.
Okay, so this project, I Belong, made me realize that, we're all here as a family, we're all the same in a way, and we got each other's back.
Sometimes I dream about speaking Hausa, maybe Igbo, maybe Twi, anything to allow me to tell my story more honestly, because honestly, what kind of artist paints in their own blood?
When a group doesn't want you, there's always other people to rely on.
Tribes describe you. You are lost and yet found. You will lose the world's riches and yet find yourself.
I belong here. This is like know people's names and so they help me get to know people better.
But belonging here is a family and life itself. No one wants to be isolated in a corner.
That love is what I pick and choose to remember, even in the face of so much that still hurts, and so much that I still don't understand.
That was wonderful. Oh my goodness, we can applaud that. Yes. I have so many things to say, Emma. So many things to say. And I'm going to start at the beginning where just a moment ago I told you I'm adopted. My parents are French-Canadian. They both speak French. Louise et André Verdon. It doesn't get more French than that. And I grew up in a French household. But, when I was in the 4th grade, we moved to Egypt for 4 years. And so I had to learn to speak English to go to the international school. And that became a thing, right? And where my mom is a separatist, And she is on a completely different note when it comes to English and French and the importance of her French. My dad was like, well, we have to learn English and we have to integrate. This is going to open opportunities for them as they grow older, and for me as a professional aerospace engineer who's traveling the world. And so then we came back here, then we moved to Israel for 4 years. And so it was that experience really that opened all these doors for me, because I look at the opportunities that I have today in being able to speak in French and being able to speak in English. And it's that bilingualism that actually has me here today standing with you. And so I saw some of them. I even saw Guillaume, he was talking about it. He grew up in a French household. So many people were talking about the importance of bilingualism. And so the message today, really, if you had to say a little quick note as to what you want people to get from this, is what?
I mean, definitely, I think, to echo the bilingualism, but I would also just echo that, you know, we need to make room and we need to celebrate the diversity within our community. We are not one thing.
No, we aren't.
And I don't think we want to be, right?
And that's the thing. We saw it in the video. Nobody wants to be really one thing. And so, you know, you guys are doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'm going to ask you one more thing in French. Qu'est-ce qui va se passer avec LEARN dans le futur? Qu'est-ce que vous aimeriez travailler dans les prochains mois?
Mais je pense pour nous, on va continuer le partenariat avec ELAN parce qu'on trouve que ces expériences-là pour les jeunes, c'est super important. Puis on voit ça. Ça leur permet de s'exprimer d'une manière très importante. Ça leur donne un voix. Alors pour nous, le travail va continuer. On va essayer de continuer à promouvoir les jeunes et leur donner ces opportunités-là.
L'idée, est-ce que c'est vraiment d'aller dans les écoles de la communauté, dans les alentours? J'ai vu Galileo Adult Center, j'ai déjà travaillé avec eux. C'est vraiment d'aller dans toutes les écoles?
On essaye, pour nous, on déserte toutes les écoles anglophones à travers la province. Fait que pour nous, on a déjà travaillé, je pense maintenant, avec à peu près 50 ou 60 écoles. Alors, on essaye, on va continuer à essayer de travailler avec tout le monde.
Do you feel your project was really welcome with open arms amongst the English community speaking schools?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
especially during COVID when they were so restricted, because we of course built the project so that it runs remotely 100%, and I think that's a big deal. So shout out to our artists and our teachers, because they're making it work, and I think in the past 2 years it's been very well received.
Amazing. Well, we thank you so much, Emma Legault from
Thank you.
LEARN. So Betty, do you want me to go back up? Do you want to do the transition to the spoken word? Okay, so I'll just do it from here. Mark, are you okay with that? That's what happens when we're live and we're moving around. Okay, so as we saw, LEARN's I Belong project includes a spoken word caption. Joining us remotely is one of LEARN's collaborating artists, Liana Cusmano, and Secondary 5 student at the Riverside School Board, Abigail Shotlander, who worked with Liana this school year to create her own spoken word piece, exploring the theme of belonging. I see them there on the screen. They have both kindly agreed to perform for us, so here they are. Welcome.
Hi. It's great to be here. And it was so wonderful to see that highlight reel of all the amazing things that LEARN has been doing. I've been working with LEARN on the I Belong project for a couple of years now. And it's such a wonderful experience to walk into a classroom physically or virtually, and to encounter the first sort of reactions to spoken word in particular, which sometimes is, yes, I'm really excited to do this from some students, and from other students is, well, what's poetry and how is this relevant? And I'm not very excited about this. And to see that complete 180 shift by the end of the session and the 5 or 6 workshops that we all do together. So my name is Liana Cusmano. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm going to be performing a piece that I tend to do in the opening workshop with the groups that I tend to work with. And then I'll pass it over to Abigail, who's put together some really amazing work. So without further ado, this poem is called A Letter to Mike, the angsty squirrel I see on my porch sometimes. Dear Mike, did you know that if you lie very still and very flat and make sure not to move a muscle, I can still see you? Mike, did you know that you remind me of myself in every changing room of every gym, pool, locker room, and youth center I've ever been to between the ages of 13 and 17? You remind me of myself lying frozen on a double air mattress late at night in an Ottawa Sports Academy during a provincial soccer tournament, And the only thing that frightens me more than the possibility of messing up a penalty shot is the possibility of messing up my carefully constructed projection of happy heterosexual teenage girl. To identify and intersect any glance or touch that could betray me is a constant, exhausting training exercise, a high-intensity minefield. Mine is a constant, toxic individual sport in which I compete against no one and still lose. The only guidance I've ever received on this score on the soccer field, but also on the street and at recess and at home and at school, are words volleyed at others that I am petrified will be kicked in my direction. Words like, what a lesbian. She must be a lesbian. Lesbians are so wrong. I was a frightened teenage girl lying next to another teenage girl, and I believed that if I could just lie very still and very flat and make sure not to move a muscle, I could hide the same sex shame that I wore like a second skin every day under my soccer uniform, under my street clothes, in front of everyone, all the time. Mike, did you know that years later when I cut my hair and put on a chest binder for the first time, I suddenly feel like the truest version of myself? That every time I tell someone that it's impossible to misgender me, it feels a little less true? That sometimes I suspect that even though I was treated as one, maybe I never was a teenage girl? Did you know that at one point, this is one of the reasons all of my journal entries sounded like hate mail to my parents for having given birth to me? Mike, did you know that we humans sometimes punch holes into our ears and noses and lips and then put jewelry in them? Sometimes it makes sense to hurt yourself, to create a wound, just so you can decorate it, just so you can try to take back what is yours and believe that you can control it. Mike, I feel that if I were to reveal to certain people the truest and most secret parts of me, like how I'm not a lesbian, I could never be a lesbian, because it's usually often sometimes implied that to be a lesbian, you also have to be a girl. And I don't think I was ever a girl. If I were to disclose something like this to my soccer teammates, to my colleagues at work, to my grandmother, I'm not sure that I would be able to control whatever pain they decide to inflict on me, whether by accident or on purpose. I'm not sure that that pain would serve a purpose that would be worth it, that I could reclaim that pain and make it into something beautiful, something that I could wear, like an earring or a medal or a piece of armor. And so the easiest solution seems to be, again, to lie very still and very flat, to do what you do, to perceive a threat and to panic and to freeze, to not move a muscle, to hope that no one will see me, and to hope that someday I will finally have practiced enough. Someday I will finally succeed at hiding even from myself. Mike, I've realized that to actively hide any aspect of your most authentic self is an exercise in self-destruction. And if you let it, it will last you your whole life. I've realized that if pain is the price I have to pay to feel like a person and not like a ghost, then maybe that will be worth it. Maybe I can learn to be seen and safe at the same time. Maybe I can unlearn every lesson kicked in my direction when I was younger, when those two things felt like they could only belong on opposite teams. The only thing that could possibly be more terrifying and exhausting than doing this is not doing it, is staying hidden, is playing it safe and alive, my own design that I realize now slowly scrapes against my soul. Mike, you remind me of myself as an adolescent, as a child, as the person I was before. And from now on, I want to be less like you and more like the version of myself I have always been, but that I've never let anyone see. P.S. I see you.
Leanna, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So I don't want to let you go yet, and I don't want you to throw to Abigail yet, because there's so many things. You gave me so many goosebumps during that spoken word, and a couple of things that I want to run by you and ask you, of course. And one of those things is, you know, in talking so candidly and openly, at the end of the day, you're talking to a squirrel. And so is that really because of not being able to find a person or the person that you can confide in, and so you confide into the squirrel?
I think that's definitely part of it. And I usually tell the students about the inspiration for each piece that I perform. And the inspiration is almost always based on something that actually happened and in reality, which is where a lot of students draw their inspiration from for their pieces. There was really a squirrel, and he was angsty, and he did hang out on my back porch. And I think that for something as, and it was different when I was in high school, but even to this day, I think that being a member of the LGBTQ2AS+ community, depending on where you live and who you are, can be really challenging, whether you're queer or lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, asexual, questioning. It's something that can be really difficult for a lot of people. And for some people, the person or creature that you can confide to is a squirrel, or is, you know, a construction for yourself until you can build what it is that you need to go out into your community and be vulnerable to someone who can maybe be the person that you need. Until then, sometimes your best option is a squirrel. And so it's really interesting to see the work that some of these students put together and how brutally honest and raw it is. And sometimes there are students who are worried and who do say, do I have to share this with anybody? And that's something that I try to reassure them of. There is the word part and there is the spoken part. Nobody in any of the workshops that I've ever given, and this is something I stress every class, every year, every workshop, you never have to write anything or share anything that makes you uncomfortable. This is just for you. If you would like to share and if you would like to be vulnerable to members of your community who could maybe reflect that back to you, that's great, because that creates a great sense of safety and belonging. But if you're not ready, if this poem or this spoken word piece is just for you, if it's just you and the squirrel, then that's also fine. That's also really important, that you be able to have a safe space. And if that space for now is just you and your queerness and your questioning about anything, then that's the most important thing for me as a facilitator.
And that's what I loved about it. Thank you, Leanna. Really understood it. And I saw it as almost as though the squirrel was your diary, really. And so really thank you for that. I'll let you introduce Abigail to us.
Wonderful. So Abigail is a student at St. Lambert International High School, and I had the pleasure of working with her and her classmates and her teacher, Mr. William Marks. It's a pleasure to introduce her. And I was so impressed with Abigail's style and expression and the way she just draws you into her work. So Abigail, it's all yours. Go ahead.
You guys can hear me, can you?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just going to my phone. Wait, not my phone. Okay. This poem is called Growing Up. I learned to braid my own hair at 6 years old. I learned to be quiet and only speak when I'm told. I learned to pucker up and kiss relatives I didn't like. I learned to stare at the floor and never pick fights. I taught myself to count sheep, to tie my own shoes and let my teeth steep because my mom was too busy and my dad was asleep. I learned to kiss my own bruises and to clean my own cuts. Learned to say bad words like shit, damn, and fuck, and I still say them quietly so my dad doesn't hear. Because to him, I'm still little, and sometimes I feel like he only really loves the little me. I can buy my own bus tickets, book my doctor's appointments. I can sit at the grown-up table now and talk boring politics. I can walk myself to the bus stop and buy my own coffee. I can go to the grocery shop and do my own groceries. I can fix my own shirts and darn my own socks. I can pack all my stuff into my own moving box. I can hold my own hand. I can hold my own breath and learn to grow up. I'll learn to grow up. I'll learn to do taxes, to tie my own tie and to pay my own rent. I'll send my boss faxes. I love my own self. I'll find my own meaning, because maybe the point is to be happy just being. I'll wipe my own tears. My own secrets I'll keep, because my mom is too busy and my dad is asleep.
Wow. Oh, Abigail. Okay, so one thing that you said that really stood out, in all of your independence, you can do your own taxes?
I would learn to do that.
You're gonna learn how to do your taxes. Well, listen, Abigail, a lot about being independent, a lot of you just figuring things out on your own. And so I have to ask you, for people, you know, in your age, in your demographic who are wondering, you know, about belonging in school, what would be your message to them?
I think that belonging is something so personal and so it's different for everyone. And belonging doesn't necessarily mean to feel like you're the same to anyone else. Belonging is really something that you only belong if you say you belong. Even if you're in a community, you know, if let's say I'm a ballet dancer and I'm with other ballet dancer friends, I don't necessarily belong with them. Because if I feel uncomfortable with them, but we're doing the same thing.
Interruption, can Jaden Sandoval please come to the office?
That's what happens when we're live.
School life.
Yeah. Go ahead, Abigail.
I don't necessarily feel like I belong with them, then I don't. It's very personal. So, yeah.
And so what have you learned with, you know, spoken word and being able to speak your mind and being so candid, being so free? I love how words are, you know, kind of your therapy per se.
I would say that I think if it were not for this project, I might not have explored this medium as much as I did. I would say that poetry is not necessarily a medium that everyone is comfortable working in. And I can say that for myself. I was not as confident as I am now from the beginning of this project. And I think that, you know, if an assignment is assigned to you, you're kind of just going in it, to finish it, to hand it in, to get a good grade. But I think with this project, you know, maybe forcing students to do something they're a little bit uncomfortable doing is worthwhile if they learn.
Well, I'm standing right here next to Emma Legault, and while the two of you were speaking, she was so proud, and she's here in the corner
so
like
proud.
this. She's so proud. And so what has Lauren been able to do for you?
Learn, I mean, Leanna, who is, you know, was here to help us every step of the way, was super helpful. They were super encouraging. I know a bunch of students who were super like, you know, worried about their presentations and worried about their poems and their words. You know, after talking with Leanna, they would sit back down a totally different person and be more confident in their work. And I think like 3 of us are planning to go to a slam poetry cafe sometime in the summer to perform our poems that we've worked so hard on that Leanna has encouraged us to show. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Abigail, Leanna, thank you to the both of you. I love the snapping. I love the snapping. So listen, we are going to encourage you to visit Learn Kiosk right here, or to go to ibelong.learnquebec.ca to learn and see more about English-speaking youth. We just saw Abigail and Leanna, amazing what they were able to really showcase here, and really candid. Emma, I know you want to say a little something.
It's too much.
Proud.
I'm just so proud of them.
Yeah.
And I think, just to maybe mirror what Mr. Flock said, there is really a natural relationship. Our youth deserve and need to be in touch with our artists.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for your time, Emma. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on. Mark, are you following me? We're going this way. Let's go. I feel like we're going on a little ride here. We're going to be speaking with Black Community Resource Center, and I'm really excited about this. Is this it right here? Hi, everybody. Hey.
Hello.
So, Mark, where would you like me? Am I okay here? Can you see everyone a little bit? Are you okay? It's okay? I don't know if people at home can still see me here because it's not really light, but it's okay. They can hear my voice. This year, the Black Community Resource Center partnered with 2 English Black communities organizations to produce a series of projects that explore belonging and identity from the perspectives of English-speaking Black youth, artists, and families. In doing so, the BCRC, the Black Community Resource Center, aimed to provide members of their community an outlet for creative expression while bringing attention to the unique experiences and diverse and often intersecting identities that members of the English-speaking community hold. Most importantly, this year's project wishes to highlight that community acceptance and cultural understanding are the true essences of having a sense of belonging. So I'm going to introduce Charisse Etienne.
Yes.
That's you right here. Would you like to come on up? Oh. Or do you have to be by the computer?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You do? Okay, perfect. So Charisse, before we begin here, I wanted to ask you to tell me a little bit about the project.
Yes. So as you said, this year, BCRC partnered with 2 Black community organizations to do year 2 of the community project. And it has been such a blast working with both Youth in Motion and the Black Theater Workshop to embark in this journey. So we had the opportunity to do our individual projects, all with the same sense of, you know, giving youth and members of our community to really discuss their perspectives on identity and belonging. So it was such a pleasure to be a part of this.
And what have you learned through the creation of your project?
I have to say we learned so much, but one thing that was so core and something that I believe is really important when we speak about identity and belonging is that sense of community. And as you can see here, a community is so important because when you don't feel like you're a part of a community, there is a part of you that definitely feels like as if you don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't belong, you're not able to really reach your full potential. And that's something that we really, really value. And that this is something that we want to instill in our youth as well. And also members of the English-speaking Black community that sometimes really don't feel like they truly belong.
So, Charisse, your last name is Etienne?
Yes.
Are you an Anglophone, or would you say you're a Francophone?
Funny enough, I am Anglophone.
You are, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of a Black woman here and belonging, so I wanted to ask you kind of like the challenges where you may have not felt as though you belong as an English-speaking Black woman here in Quebec.
Definitely. I mean, this is something very personal, but you know, as they kind of say, especially as a former Concordia Women's Studies student, you know, the personal is definitely the personal is definitely political.
Yes.
And for me, there has been a lot of instances, especially with the last name Etienne, where, you know, people might look at me, they might see my resume and say, oh, she must speak French.
Yeah.
But when they meet me, and unfortunately, I'm definitely not as fluent as I would like to be in French, that's not the case. And just knowing that although I might have, you know, a good education and some experience, I might be excluded from certain opportunities just because I do not, you know, fluently speak the language and so forth. But it's something that I do believe that, you know, as a community, that we should, you know, learn more about and learn how to support each other to reach those things. But that feeling of exclusion and knowing that you may not have the community to support you in the way that you may need, that's where you might feel, you know, definitely like you don't belong.
Okay, well, thank you for that and for being honest.
Yes.
And really explaining it to us. So I don't know if it's Doug or you that's going to show me the reel. Is it you, Doug? If it is, here's a little bit of the works from the Black Community Resource Center.
So I just want to say that this is a little collage of each of the projects. So I'm going to take you through.
Okay, perfect. Will I be able to see them here? Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Lucia in the studio with us. We have in the studio none other than Mr. Jaden Shaw, Emilian, and we have Brother Robin in the house. Yes, sir. And we have another young, promising young artist, that none other than DMC 47 with us in the house. KK Farkas. So, wow. It's a pleasure to have you here. And here in the studio with us, we have none other than Dakota and Iona. None other than Makisha. How are you today, Makisha?
I'm fantastic.
Taslaya, welcome to Taslaya. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
The rhythm. Get in for the rhythm. Yes, absolutely.
I just want to see you smile and never die.
So that was just a little taste of what Youth in Motion created with their youth from mostly Little Burgundy. And I believe that was like a great opportunity for them to actually kind of create that community through their creative outlet of creating music. So,
did you have another one to show us?
Yeah, you actually. It's just going to be connection issues though.
Oh, she's having connection issues. Is that you, Doug? Wi-Fi, in terms of Wi-Fi?
Let's see.
Okay, that worked.
Fix the audio, just 1 second.
Okay, so we'll pause that. We will pause that. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Yes. I don't know if you're supposed to be teetering off of this one, Doug.
It's meant to be this one.
It's meant to be this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, it was. I'm on the Wi-Fi.
Are you screen sharing on the Zoom?
No. Oh, okay. So it's only be here.
Oh, okay. So do you want to just out loud just explain it to us then?
Yes.
What the other ones were?
So the other videos that you all were meant to see was actually a snippet of the Untold Stories project that the BCRC undertook. So we actually created a 5-episode video series on community and belonging within the Black community across 3 generations of families. So we interviewed 5 families with 3 generations, and our whole question was just all about identity and belonging, and wanting to understand, you know, how maybe the different perspectives of identity and belonging kind of swayed across the generations. And surprisingly enough, there's some things that definitely were different and things that definitely stayed the same, but it was definitely interesting just to hear the different perspectives and hear the stories and all the history that the community had to share. So that was the other section of the video. And then also, I do want to bring to light Black Theater Workshop. So they actually created a beautiful art installation, a virtual art installation that is just amazing to look at. And it really amplified you know, the queer Black community's perspective of identity and belonging. And this was actually a second iteration of the initial belonging project that they did. And what the coordinator, Liddy, actually wanted to do was highlight, you know, well, at the first iteration, she was questioning, how comes, you know, members of the LGBTQ community were not able to participate the first time around? So she said, you know what, I'm gonna make it my point to give them their own space so that they can feel comfortable. And through doing so, she really was able to highlight, you know, and they were actually, the artists were able to highlight things that made them feel excluded within and outside of their communities. So very beautiful art installation.
Do you mind passing the mic over? I want to ask you about that. Yes. You do have a second mic? Okay. So I'm going to stand in the way here. So I have to ask you about that. So you saw there was something missing and you decided, okay, I need to work on this and make sure that this is very inclusive. So tell me about the importance of that.
Well, exactly. When you have a project that has as a theme belongingness, and the first iteration was a beautiful, like we had a beautiful outcome. It was led by Diane Roberts, and all of we had something like 12 artists who tapped into their own ancestry to find out how to land their roots here in Quebec, in Montreal. And as we were celebrating this wonderful accomplishment, I could not help but wonder how come there was
There's a group missing.
There was no queerness that had peaked. There was nothing about it, as if it was not part of the conversation. And I felt it was disturbing that even within if you do an activity within the Black community, how come queerness does not show up not even in one of the stories?
At times very taboo amongst the Black community.
And to me it was, and that's why I reached out to a couple of my friends and said, when Black communities announce an activity, do you feel safe joining in? And that's when the answer was like, not always. It's not because it's a Black space that I feel safe. And to me, that's why, as Cherise just explained, well, then we'll create a space so that we can explore that question and that you can feel safe for it.
I love it. I have a French question. Cherise, do you want to take it? Or are you going to pass it on?
I might pass it on to Michael.
Okay. So Michael, on parle du projet ici. Pourquoi ce projet est-il tellement important? On parle d'identifier et l'appartenance. On vient de parler à Lydie. Et puis, elle nous a parlé comme quoi c'est important d'inclure vraiment tout le monde. Parle-moi de ça un peu.
Bien, bonjour tout le monde, merci. Nous autres, c'est 21 Youth Calling, Youth Emotion, comme vous venez de voir les previews. Alors, c'est avec plaisir qu'on se joint à tout le monde du projet Belonging et puis même avec le plus grand réseau là, de ce qu'on a vu ce matin de tous les partenaires. C'est un travail formidable. Bien, je vais te répondre. Oui, effectivement, il y a certaines voix qui se font peu entendre des fois et c'est pour ça que on a mis en place cette possibilité de pouvoir s'exprimer. Alors, puis même là, il a fallu, comme vous venez de le dire, Lydie, ratisser un peu plus large parce qu'encore il y a certains membres de nos communautés, il allait passer en dessous. C'est que déjà que les anglophones, c'est pas trop évident au Québec par les temps qui courent. C'est ce qu'on reconnaît tous qu'il faut réellement qu'on fasse notre place, qu'on se fasse entendre, mais et puis ensuite d'avoir des groupes dans les communautés noires anglophones, mais qui vivent aussi par rapport à, disons, à leur orientation, tout ça de genre ou sexuel, ben qui ne trouvent pas leur place, qui ne s'expriment pas, puis que ces histoires-là ne sont pas dites. on n'avance pas dans ce sens-là. Alors, j'applaudis ton initiative. Alors, je pense que c'est important que tout le monde puisse être inclus. Puis, it makes a lot of strikes contre une personne qui est anglophone, qui est noire, et puis que des fois qui est aussi qui peut vivre de la discrimination par rapport à son orientation. Alors, chapeau à ceux qui ne les oublient pas.
Bravo, merci. Très bonne réponse. Vraiment, là, je vais vraiment vous applaudir parce que qu'est-ce que vous dites, c'est tellement important. Puis là, on voit la vidéo. On voit la vidéo maintenant. On voit exactement ce que vous voyez ici. Alors, si tu veux nous montrer la vidéo, il n'y aurait pas de problème.
Yes.
You want to just press play?
Hi, good evening. My name is Deborah Hunt. I'm second generation. I'm 63 years old. I worked at the hospital for 40 years, and I just retired 4 years ago.
My name is Charlene Pamela Hunt. I'm second generation. I worked at the Jewish General for 37 years, and I'm now retired 4 years.
Hi, I'm Chantal Lattimore-Durant. I'm maternally third generation and paternally more than fifth generation. And I am a senior financial associate, a financial advisor, and I spent 20 years in the medical field as well. Go ahead.
My name is Sarah. I'm 7 years old.
I'm a student in grade 1.
I'm a student in grade 1.
And you're third generation.
And I'm third generation.
Good job. Want to say it again by yourself?
Do you identify as Canadian, Quebecois, or something else?
They keep asking me where I'm from. I just tell them Barbados and call it a day. You know who you are and where you came from. And you ask me the question, but it's still not good enough for you. So I don't bother. I really don't bother. I try to live good, live quiet, and that is it. But I know who I am and where I came from. And I'm thankful for all blessings that have been bestowed upon us.
Perfect. So you identify as Bajan?
Yes.
I identify myself as a Bajan, but more likely as a Canadian, not a Quebecois, because I don't find, I'm born here in Quebec, but I'm not wanted. So my background is Bajan Canadian.
Same question? Oh, I identify as a Canadian. If I was to say anything else, I'm a Canadian. I don't really see any other way to identify who I am. I'm born here. My parents were born here. I have grandparents that were born here. So Canadian for me through and through. And it's regardless of whether you accept it or not, that's who I am.
What have your parents taught you about where you come from? Debbie?
Love and respect. Hold your head up. Be as good as you can be and not get in consultation with anyone, even though we know how life is and we follow those rules, even though it wasn't that easy because you would have name calling when we were going to school, but I brushed it off, hear and don't hear, to succeed and get through life.
As my mom would say, be the best person you can and love yourself. That's number one. If you don't love yourself, nobody can love you back.
So if the question is, what have your parents taught you about where you're from? Well, everything I learned about where I was from is here. I was born here. However, I got to learn all about the beautiful island of Barbados, where my grandparents were from. I got to visit multiple times and see cousins and family. So I got to see that we have a life outside of here and we also have a life here. And I learned how to respect others and to love the country I'm in and have respect and love the country my grandparents are from.
You talked about your parents. You said that your mother was one of 25 that came from Barbados?
Yes. She came with, there's two that are living presently right now, Lolita Johnson and Ida Terrell. And in the books that we show the pictures, they came, they didn't have any winter clothes. they gave them a coat and newspaper to keep the cold out of their chest, and rubber boots. And she lived on Tupper Street, which is near the Children's Hospital, which was a rooming house. And later on, she sent for my father, and they were married. And she was looking for a place where she found in the Gazette, in the Montreal Star at that time. And when she went for the place, it was in Côte St. Luc. She rang the bell, and the guy, when he opened the door and he saw her, he said, "We don't have any place." She goes, "I just saw the paper." And he shut the door, and she always said, "I kept my hand on that door, and I ring and ring," till he just got up, snatched his keys, showed her the place, and she says, "I'll take it." And that was 6767 Côte St. Luc. It's a high rise now, but it was a smaller co-op place before. He came back.
Oh, I want to hear the rest of that. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah, so
Cerise, you're at the cliffhanger.
we could go on a little bit more, and I just wanted to mention. I just wanted to mention here she's just going to explain a little bit about how community was built.
Yes.
So we'll go on.
Okay. And ask her, "Are there any more people like you that pay your rent?" And that is how Côte St. Luc and Walkley got so many Black people, because then they all that came from the West Indies, they were able to get a place to live. From Côte St. Luc, we moved to Walkley, 5161 Walkley, apartment 21. And we had the same phone number for 60 years till my mom died.
My mom told us, just like I said, your parents makes a lot. You be kind to people, and they see the kindness in you, and you're able to give back, and you're able to get back from them.
She was a short woman, but a very strong woman. She was determined to get through anything that came her way. When they landed here in 1955, she was a full-fledged Canadian citizen. They had their papers when they came off of the plane. She worked in home, domestic work for the Northworthies, and she kept her place, but she always said, "Come and learn. You don't know when I'll not be around. Come and learn." So I was the oldest out of 3 children, and I had to learn how to cook, wash, and clean. Saturdays, you lift up the mattress, you vacuum, you do all the bedrooms, then the living room, polish in between the wood vein. You don't do it any way you want. You do it the way she told you. And I learned how to cook fried chicken and rice and peas. And I don't regret anything I learned from my mom, because it carried me to where I am today. And I tried training my children the same way.
And I was the flip side. I was like the boy in the family that got my ears twisted and the beatings and the scolding. But I was the boy, and when things used to happen to my older sister, my father would say, "You go out to that school and you fix them. Don't let me hear you come back and you didn't take care of those boys that are harassing my sister." So I guess I got my strength from my father, because he made 3 girls. And that's it. I've been always holding my own, and just through my parents and my father's way of that strong hand, you know. He worked at the, I think the Gazette, or
the Montreal
the
Star.
Montreal Star. He was a printer, but when he left Barbados, he was on Radio Fusion. He used to sing on the radio, so he brought that craft to Canada, and he met. And he was a printer in the Advocate. He came here, and he met a few of his friends that, you know, you have a bond and they become godparents to you and everything. And his job he picked up after the printing was the Jewish General Hospital. He did other things, but the Jewish General was where he went. And he had a first rough day, and he came home crying to my mom. I remember this. I wasn't born then, but she said, "Your father come home crying." And she says, "What's wrong with you, Daddy?" He says, "They call me a nigger." And my mom says, "You was a nigger? You go back and you do that job the best way you can." And from that day, my father went back to the hospital. My mom said, "I will send you to nursing school." And she sent my father as a domestic worker so my father can get all the education he can, and became a nursing assistant and was training the orderlies on their codes and everything. And then from there, the structure of my father, we end up having our last sister, which is Adrian. He was away on maneuvers. They call it war games. And I remember that day I was 3 years of age. These two white men came to the house stating that something had happened to Mr. Wesley Hunt. And at that time, I think my father was a private or a Sergeant Hunt. Anyhow, they came to the door and they says, your father Mr. Hunt has been hurt. At that time, my mom was pregnant with my sister, Adrian. And we didn't get to see my father. He had degrees burns on his hands and everything. So what had transpired, they had a war game. A grenade had blown up on one of his fellow men. And then he outed the fire, the grenade, with his bare hands. It was like minus 30. And he got frostbitten. And he served, I guess, 2 years at the St. Anne Hospital.
The Queen, it was called the Veterans on Queen Mary at that time.
And then they moved it to St. Anne Veterans Hospital. And he spent 2 years of his time getting better with his hands.
He couldn't feed himself, he couldn't dress himself.
So he was burnt badly. So then my mom made my sister, and I never forgot, we all went to the hospital, and my mom had this little baby in her hand. And he said, well, what did you have then, doll? And then she said, I had another girl. And he was like this, oh, gee. My mom looked at him and says, well, what do you want me to do? Push it back up on me? Because he made 3 girls, you understand? So anyhow, that part I remember at that age, you know. And my father was like a full pledge to Canadian Army and to Canada, his Queen, and to Barbados.
He got a medal from the Queen. That's where his medals came from, for saving that gentleman's life.
He always made sure that we learned a lot about being an active member of society. So it was nice because they raised us very strict, even though they were not our parents, they were our grandparents, but he raised us to understand, to have respect for others and how to dress, how to behave, and how to speak. My grandmother, I would say, I wouldn't even think that she was real. I did a project on her once when I was at Dawson. And at the end, people said to me, is your grandmother Martha Stewart? Because she was like the first Black president of the Legion, of the women's group. She took ceramics class, she did yoga, she did Tai Chi. She worked at the church to help cook meals whenever they had functions. And she taught my sister and myself and Charlene's son, Andrew, who's no longer with us, how to do ceramics. They brought us to community centers so that we would see everything. So our grandparents were so involved. Wesley and Lindahl are definitely pillars when it comes to community, and it's pillars when it comes to serving. Both of them spent their lives serving. They came here and they saw serving as a lifestyle. So they were in the Barbados House. They were always doing functions at the Barbados House. If they were part of the things to go with the Legion and the Army, they were at the dinners for the Legion and the Army. I remember meeting the Governor General at a dinner. Each of us, we didn't like it then though, and he thought it was a great thing. And he's like, each year, one of you get to come with me to the big dinner at the Legion. And we're like, oh gosh, who gets to go this year? Andrew, I think it's you. But now I look back and see, yes, we were honestly always the only Black family there. But we always had such a good time because everyone respected him. And he wanted us to see that we belonged. He wanted us to see that you need to do more than just get up and care for yourself.
Okay, we're
and
gonna
so
pause
it's
it
been
right
a
here.
pleasure to have that in my understanding.
If somebody could pause it, thank you. So I have to say, what's really interesting in watching that, you have someone who, you know, we're talking about belonging, appartenance, Bayesian Canadian, and how different it is for, you know, 3 generations of Black women for them to say where they feel they fit in here in the society. So really, really interesting take. I'll just move out of your way here. So before we let you go, Sharice, I understand that you have a game that you want to show us.
Yes, so it's just a little quiz game to get you guys interested in exploring all of our projects. So as I mentioned, it was Youth in Motion, Black Theater Workshop, and BCRC who collaborated on year 2 at the community project. And we just put together a little kind of fun fact game for you to learn a little bit more. And I do want to mention that a lot of our content is all online. So if you go over to our YouTube page, you'll be able to see on the Youth in Motion, they have a whole album made by the youth. Also, the Untold Stories is online at the BCRC YouTube page. And then also, of course, for Black Theater Workshop, they have a beautiful virtual installation through their website. So we're just going to go ahead and do a quick little quiz.
Let's do it. We able to show this on the screen for everybody at home as well?
It works.
Sorry, folks, we didn't receive the link to share it on the Zoom.
Are you able to send it over, Charisse?
I'm not sure. Right now I'm actually frozen.
But I think it's in the chat. Here, I can share it.
Unfortunately, it looks like we're still having tech issues. I'm actually frozen. But I guess at any rate, I do want to kind of give the floor to the others in case they want to mention anything. So we'll go ahead and we'll proceed like that if you don't mind.
Perfect. Anybody else from the group want to say anything here? Yes.
Okay, there we go. I'd like to just present the person that did the graphic art for 21 Youths Calling, Jaden, right here with us. Absolutely. And Tesleya, she's here with us. She participated, it was her first time singing. She did a beautiful song called Allies. And yeah, let's hear it for she also works full-time with me at Youth in Motion. So we're really happy to have both of them. They both actually work. So it's been a work in progress. And I'd like to maybe just hear from them. How was the experience?
I want to ask you about, about your performance, your song. Yeah. Tell me about it and the specific title.
Okay, so yes, the title is Allies.
Yeah.
And it's to be allies with the community because the project was for Black English speaking and I'm Guyanese English speaking. So I just wanted to be allies with the community and spread positivity inside of my song.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we want to hear about your work with this project.
Testing. Okay, yeah.
It's on.
So yeah, I'm just the person behind the cover. I had fun with it. It was just another challenge to do. I did like about, I would say 5, 4 like examples just to make sure Michael would like it, if everything would be okay. And then yeah, it was.
And how important is it for you to be working with this group?
How important?
Yeah.
It was very important because, well, every person in this project had a role to do. So it was very important, I would say, very important.
Okay, great. A lot more on this side.
Hi, yes. And again, congratulations on this very interesting project that I cannot wait to explore on YouTube, right? Yes. And yeah, I talked about how we did the project, but there's one of the artists that participated to the installation that's here. So I really want to make sure that we can highlight and celebrate Nigel.
Absolutely. Just tell us your name, please.
I'm H. Nigel Thomas. And I got this invitation from Liddy about the Belonging Project. And I wondered at first whether I should participate, but eventually I did. And I created a sort of a video project in which I spoke about growing up in St. Vincent and moving here, my experiences here in Montreal, my community involvement and community rejection, and living in Quebec City and going through pretty much the same sort of thing. I integrated the project with some of my work. By the way, I'm a writer, And in fact, last week I won the Molson, the Canada Council Molson Award.
Wow.
Thank you. So yeah, I sort of related much of my experience to my work, my written work, and yeah, that's pretty much what I wish to say.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Thank you. And congratulations. Anybody back here? We're good? Okay. Well, thank you. So we're going to keep moving on. That was great. Thank you. Actually, I'm going to leave this with you guys right here. Or do we move it on to the other? Okay. Are we okay? Senior Action Quebec. Oh, over here. We're moving this way. Okay. How are you guys? Nice to see you. Okay, so I'm just going to put this here for one of you. You guys can share that mic. So quick description here. For the second phase of the community project, Seniors Action Quebec produced a series of videos showcasing English-speaking community organizations across the regions of Quebec that work directly with seniors and highlight the specific challenges and difficulties they face while working to support their community. So by sharing the stories of these frontline community workers, we can gain insight into how to support seniors, how to work with them to foster a sense of belonging, and of course, how to win the battle against isolation. So Katia and Jesse. Okay, perfect. So Katia, talk to me about what you guys are doing, your work, and how important it is to the community.
So Seniors Action, oh, a microphone, so weird. Seniors Action Quebec works to support English-speaking seniors and seniors in general, and also community groups that work with seniors and the English-speaking seniors of Quebec. And Jesse's part of our production team, just to give the context.
She's throwing you into it.
But he knows more. He has a different perspective on the project because pandemic, and I was stuck in the office, and Jesse was on the road.
So Jesse, you were more hands-on. So tell me about the project. You guys could, yeah.
Yeah. So this year we went all across the province to talk with the different community organizations and how they directly impact a sense of belonging, creation of community, and helping these seniors navigate through sort of the landscape where maybe they're not as fluent in French and they have to deal with all these services. One thing we forget being Montreal people is that outside of Montreal, sometimes it can be very difficult to
find English
services. And then when you're a senior, medical things are very, very important, and those are harder and harder.
Is it common? Do you see that the senior community often struggles with this?
From what, I mean, I'll let Katya go. From what I saw, it was, they needed a lot of help.
Is it more of an issue than we even realize?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and that was why we wanted to, so just to give a bit of context, in the first year of the project, which was last year, so it was 2020, 2021, our focus was just finding, I think it was 9 videos we did, 9 seniors, all with different stories, and of what it means to belong to Quebec, what it means to be an English-speaking senior. So we sat down with them to kind of talk about the key political and sociological events that happened in Quebec and the impact it had on their sense of belonging. So flash forward, 18 months into a pandemic, we thought, oh, that's great. We have the civilian perspective, as I call it, and then we'll just shift literally the camera lens and focus on the community groups who work with English-speaking seniors. So we focused on 5 community groups. I have my cheat sheet because I know
that's
the acronyms,
okay.
But not
that's
the whole
okay.
names.
We all have notes.
And with the camera, I'm like, too much pressure. So in Montreal, we have ACDPN, which is the African Canadian Development and Prevention Network. Then in the Magdalen Islands, we went to visit CAMI, which is the Council for Anglophone Magdalen Islanders. And then in the Gaspé, we went to visit the Community for Anglophone Social Action. And then we went back to Abitibi-Témiscamingue, and we went to visit Neighbors. So it's Neighbors Association of Rouyn-Noranda. And then we went to Quebec City, and we went to visit Voice of English-Speaking Quebec.
So I'm seeing all the people here. You have actually Helena Burke, Charlene Sullivan, Bridget Wellens, Tanya Callender, and Alan Richards, all on standby, who are here to talk about their projects.
So yeah, little changes, last minute changes, because it's live and it's one day and everything happens in life. So for Cami, there's Joy, who's going to be here, and for Kaza, it's going to be Faye. And if the Zoom gods are with us, big breath, everyone should be coming.
Okay, so I'm gonna
onto
go
Zoom.
on over
We'll
because I want to
follow.
meet these people.
Cool.
Let's move on, moving on up. Here we go. Am I going back to the podium so I can see? Okay. Oh, go sit over there. We're sitting over there. We're sitting over there. We're sitting over there. All right, in the big chair. Oh, look at this. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? You can all hear me? Okay,
Yep.
good. Okay, so the first person that I'll be speaking with is Helen. Where's Helen? Where's Helen? Where's Helen? Where's Helen?
No,
Where's
you're going to be
Helen?
speaking to, where is she?
I have Bridget, Olivia,
Joy. For
Charlene,
Cammie?
Joy. There she
Hi,
is.
Joy.
Hi, Joy. So many faces. Okay.
Hi.
Okay, Joy. There. Okay, so tell me about your project.
So our project, we do a lot of different activities with our seniors, and we felt it was important to have all of those things shared and the importance of keeping our seniors in their homes as long as we could. Unfortunately, not all seniors have that option, but we do our very best to do visits.
Oh. The Zoom gods. We lost you, Joy. I don't know if you could hear us, but we are losing you. I don't know if you're... your connection, because everybody else is here and not freezing. So Joy, I'm going to let you...
Okay, maybe if I turn my video. I can turn my camera off. Sometimes my video will work better with my camera.
Okay, so as long as we're hearing your voice, I'll let you know.
Is it working good now?
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Everybody tells me I'm nice and loud, so it should be good. Sorry, our goal is to make sure that our seniors in our community stay in their homes as long as that they can. We don't have a home for the seniors to go in our own community. So as long as they can stay in their homes, we make sure that they have everything they need. So I go and visit, I do a lot of outreach. I'd even deliver them books if they read, puzzles if they need them. We do activities to bring them out into the community so that they get to see people. Unfortunately, like everybody with COVID, it limited our activities in person, but I still did the home visits to make sure they didn't need anything and weren't completely isolated from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
If they need anybody in between to bridge that gap with a social worker or adaptations in their homes, whatever they need, we try to be there as much as we can to help them with every step, especially if it's in a different language, because the majority of our seniors cannot speak French. So we have to make that gap and be there for them to make sure they understand not only the language, but the words that are being used for them.
And so, Joy,
that's our project in a nutshell.
When you talk about, not only are they struggling with language, they're struggling with isolation. Are you noticing also that most seniors want to stay home? Because I noticed that you spoke about going to their homes and trying to keep them at home. Is that something that most seniors want, or is that something as a society we should enforce to allow them to stay at home as long as possible?
I think that it's good for their morale the longer they can stay home. I find some if you mention to them that they have to move into a home for seniors, some of them kind of lose that vitality and that, that want to live. So the longer we can keep them in their homes, at least in our community, the majority of the seniors want to stay there. My grandmother passed away at 102, and she was still in her home going up and down stairs on a daily basis to go to bed and use the washroom. So what we can do to keep them going and in their own homes is very, very important to us. And I'm hoping that the majority of places, even in the cities and things, some people want to go to the home. They don't look at it like a death sentence. But sadly, I find a lot of our seniors here feel that if they're not in their home, they're just going somewhere to die. And that to us, it's very saddening that they would think that. So whatever we can do to make sure that they stay where they want to be and where they feel the most comfortable, we're going to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to move on to Charlene Sullivan for Neighbors Association of Rouyn-Noranda. Hello, Charlene.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
Great. Yourself?
I'm doing great. So listen, I want to hear about your project all the way out in Rouyn-Noranda.
We're not far. You are. We're on the mainland.
Yeah.
So before though, let me just thank everybody that worked so hard on this project. It has been a wonderful experience, and it was so rewarding to highlight the regions and the English-speaking Quebecers in our institutions. It really, truly increased our sense of belonging to be included in this. I want to say a special thank to Jessie. Jessie did a wonderful job, you know, finding the visuals and everything, making us look even better than we already do. So thank you, Jessie, and a special thanks to the Secretariat for the wonderful funding for this project. I don't want to repeat too much of what Joy said, because as regional associations, that's kind of what we do. We do it all for our seniors. But I could add, when we talk about, you know, trying to get them to be vital and staying home, one of the problems is our institutions where they can go to are all unilingual French, in my area anyway. And you know, we think, okay, oh, so they won't have friends, you know, that speak their language, but it's so much more than that. The menus are in French. Even, you know, satellite TV is provided, but it's all French channels. Like, so it's the little things that we just have in our homes, as, you know, when you're not speaking the majority language. So yeah, so Neighbors is really active. We do anything and everything that our seniors need us to do from them.
And Charlene, so I find that to be a major issue as a daughter of an aging mother. I find that to be a very huge issue for seniors to not be able to go into a comfortable setting where you can't even watch TV because it's not in your language, your menu is not in English. Those are problems. So how are you working to change that, or at least make it inclusive?
So like Joy said, we try to provide them enough services that they can stay in their homes as long as possible. And that will include working with our local CISAP or CIS to make sure that their home care is being provided as much in English as possible, that, you know, that the Meals on Wheels person who delivers to them can speak a little bit of English, can at least say, you know, good day, and make them feel comfortable that way. We work to translating menus, and we go and sensitize the homes about, you know, can you get some satellite channels in English? Oh mon Dieu, on n'a même pas pensé. Like, so we're just in there trying to get them to penser, you know, a little bit, just to make them a little bit aware.
Ben, on a besoin de faire un petit peu plus que juste penser à ce moment-là, je trouve.
Ouais, mais nous, on n'a pas beaucoup des numéros qui vont avec. Hein? On va dire on est 3,8% de la population. So, quand on parle d'un aîné qui va aller dans une résidence, il va être il va avoir 2 ou 3 sur 300.
Okay,
c'est vraiment qui pense pas. Il y a des fois que ça vient d'une mauvaise place, mais la plupart du temps, it comes from a good place. It's just an oversight. So part of our job is to make sure that they remember that.
Oui, parce que vraiment, ça a l'air que le système vraiment est installé pour les francophones, pas vraiment inclusif. Ben, merci beaucoup, hein? Merci beaucoup, Charlene.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Bridget Wellens, Voice of English-speaking Quebec, welcome.
Hello, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. When I got the clip last week, I was getting over COVID, and it was seriously the best thing in my week. So I'm really happy to be here. And our project was really, we wanted to highlight what we do to help seniors participate socially in the community. And without repeating what Joy and Charlene just went through, because we do a lot of the same things, even if we're in different regions, seniors are seniors, and no matter how many seniors live in the community, we still have to all come together to make sure that they feel like they're part of the community, they belong, they have something to contribute, they have contributed. So we want to celebrate that by obviously keeping them in their homes as long as possible, because there's a whole stigma that comes with, oh, well, you know, what if I do need help? And they're actually afraid to reach out because they think that the minute that they do, someone's going to think that they're losing their autonomy and they're going to be going into a home, which COVID has unfortunately taken away a little bit of the the shine with going into a long-term care facility. Some facilities are fantastic. They have a lot of really great programs, but unfortunately COVID has highlighted some of the issues that the system has been dealing with for years. And our goal was really to take them out of their home or take them out of their living situation and bring them on outings and have them get together with other seniors and participate in activities all across the region of Quebec. So, you know, we take them to the theater, we take them to the museum. Shopping trips are really, really popular, and we typically come back with loads and loads of bags to help them bring into their homes. But they go to the restaurant, blueberry picking, and all sorts of different activities throughout the city. And as well as the other punctual activities that we carry out for seniors to help keep their IT skills maybe, you know, up to par. So IT workshops and art workshops and anything really that they can think of that we can possibly put together for them, whether it's a choir or anything else that will keep their mind sharp and physically active in as much as they can possibly be and are comfortable with. And that's, you know, what we've been trying to accomplish. And I'm happy to say that even with COVID, we carried out a bunch of fantastic activities and they were really, really itching to get out. So super excited to be part of this initiative. And thanks again for having us demonstrate a little bit of what we do.
Thank you so much, Bridget. And it's so important. You brought up so many important points here because we were talking about, you know, obviously inclusivity in terms of the English language, but really also that's when it comes to isolation. You talked a lot about COVID, but we have a senior community and an aging population here that is really isolated, and the pandemic made it more so. And so how do we make sure that, you said, you know, bring in the choir, entertainment, make sure they're seen. And so really just being there and coming together for all these people is really an amazing feat. So I'm going to move on. It's not Tanya, you said, eh? It is. Ushana,
It's
Houston.
Ushana.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. So you're representing the African Canadian Development and Prevention Network.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about this.
Absolutely. So I would say that for our project with seniors was twofold. There's one part of it that's about, you know, increasing their access to culturally and linguistically adapted health and social services. And the other piece is just a sense of community. So on the adapted piece, a lot of the seniors we serve are Caribbean seniors who came here in the 1970s, worked so hard. Now they're retired. Many of their children are out of province. And so they don't have someone here who can help them access health and social services necessarily. So we do information sessions on Alzheimer's and heart rate and getting your state in order. We made a little laminated book in English and French that they can take to the doctor and point to the words to help them communicate. So we really try to give them and equip them with the tools they need to navigate the system, because as double minorities, there's just more of a challenge, not only to get services in English, but culturally adapted services that recognize.
So Ushana, I have to ask you, do you know by chance in the province of Quebec what percentage of Black people are in senior homes?
I don't know. That's actually a very good question. And it's something that we've been discussing is, you know, we're in our staff, we're in that age group where our parents, I have a mom who's in a home right now, and I'm very aware that the services may not be culturally adapted, whether it's food they eat, the songs they sing, it isn't there. And it's something that we've been thinking about doing.
But what needs to change within a system if a home has, you know, I don't remember if it was Charlene or if it was Joy who said that we're only 3%. So
right.
Like what needs to change in these homes in order for them to become inclusive for maybe perhaps 3 or 4 Black people in the whole center with 300 to 400 people?
Right. And it's funny, that is the crux of why ACDPN exists. Our philosophy is the system isn't necessarily built to meet the needs of every single demographic.
Right.
But that's why partnering with community is so important. We can bring the cultural expertise. work with us. Maybe we can come in and do some cultural activities or tell you the songs that you can sing that might jog the memory of Caribbean seniors with dementia. Maybe we can arrange to have, you know, Caribbean food delivered once in a while. So we don't expect the system to do everything, but acknowledge that there is a differentiated need and work with those who've lived the experience to bring the adaptation.
Yes, and I think, yes. And I think that that's what's so great. It's not about changing the entire thing, but just let's make it inclusive so that these individuals can feel as though they belong. We belong together. This is what we've been talking about the whole time. This is great. This is fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ushana.
Thank you.
Faye, I see you. Welcome,
Hi.
Faye.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't want to really repeat what everyone else said. I think a lot of us have a lot of the same issues living in rural area. So I'm on the Gaspé Peninsula and we cover approximately 350 kilometers of territory. And we joined the second part of this wonderful project. And I will also do a nice shout out to the Seniors Action Quebec team and to Jesse. That's what I received that video last week. I was just so happy. Just couldn't believe how they just made us look and sound so great. So thank you for that. Like I said, we deliver 9 senior wellness centers across our territory. We do 7 of them are in person. You know, we have great partnerships with our municipalities. Many of our halls we get for free, which is a bonus. We do 2 wellness centers in senior residence homes where those seniors live there but autonomously. We probably serve approximately 185 English-speaking seniors in total. That doesn't include the seniors that we're reaching currently virtual online. We also have an outreach worker who does go out to reach the most vulnerable seniors in our MRC. And, you know, just meets with them, goes in, has a chat, finds out what they need. A lot of them, their families don't live here anymore, like their children, they've moved away. So, you know, they just need that little bit of extra help. As someone said earlier, we're not going in there to, you know, take them away from their home. We're going in there to help them get the resources that they need so that they can stay there longer. That's the goal. We also have a patient navigator. And his job is to help seniors connect to the health services that they need. Sometimes it's to help them book an appointment. Sometimes it's just to go with them because of the language barrier. And for a lot of our medical treatment, we have to go to Rimouski, and that's approximately 4 hours from here. So you can imagine a senior that's in their 70s trying to, you know, book their appointment, find a hotel, where are they going to stay? Are they going to have enough money? How are they going to drive there on their own? You know, we have public transportation issues. So yeah, just like everyone else said. And
is it,
you know,
I have to ask you, is there a big English population in the Gaspé?
Yeah, actually we have approximately 8,100 English-speaking population, which represents about 12% of the population.
Wow, okay, I did not know that. Learning something every day. Okay, this is very interesting. And so when you're looking at that, you just spoke about, you know, having to go all the way to Rimouski for appointments, and that's, how do you guys come in and maybe perhaps support them in getting them that help?
Well, what we do is, like, they'll just call in and, well, we advertise it that we have a patient navigator. They'll call, we'll connect them with the hotellerie. You know, if they need transportation, we're going to work with our local cabs to see if that's a possibility. Sometimes it's a neighbor, it's a friend, or at the end of the day, if somebody from our organization has to help with that transportation, we'll do what we can.
So this question can go to Faye, it could go to Ushana, it could go to Charlene, or it could go to Bridget. When we look at, you know, our seniors, our aging population, are we this generation? So I will say, so let's say, you know, 40 plus generation, our parents, are we taking care of them, or are we bringing them into our homes, or are we sending them off into RPAs and, you know, senior homes and that sort of those sorts of places?
I'm happy to jump in because I'm going through that right now. My mom has Alzheimer's. and we kept her home for as long as we could, all through the pandemic, because we saw what was happening in the homes. And then finally, when it got too much for my stepdad as a caregiver, we transitioned her to they are an amazing staff, an amazing long-term care facility. You know, they talk about the sandwich generation, and it is difficult when you are a parent and also taking care of your parents. It's a need more and more, I think, to get that support. Even if they're staying in the home, there need to be extra services for supporting the seniors staying in their home. And if they're going into a long-term care facility, there need to be culturally and linguistically adapted services there as well.
So we're only in the first, oh, go ahead, Charlene.
Yeah, I'll just give you the different perspective. Because we don't have post-secondary English education here, our kids go away for college and university. And statistically, they don't come back. So my generation is not really here. So we have a lot of parents, but they don't have kids here. They're alone. So it's not that they don't want to keep them home. They're offering, come live with me in Toronto, you know, move to Ottawa with me or wherever they are. And they don't want to, they want to stay home. So that's when an organization like Neighbors or VEC or CASA, we have to step in and provide that support that the kids aren't there to provide.
Wow. Bridget, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I think I lost both of my parents a while back. So, but I have to say that growing up in both cultures, so my mom was Francophone and my dad was English speaking, I could see the differences between culturally just how we cared for our parents in the English speaking community versus how we care for our parents in the French speaking community. And one isn't wrong, the other isn't right. I think just culturally, I find sometimes that it's just not part of the Quebec culture that we keep our parents at home. It's not something that people strive for, although it's something that I would have wanted to do. Both my parents died pretty young. So I think we're moving towards that. And I don't know if it's the system that's pushing us to sort of make that realization that yes, we want to keep them home, but maybe that home is our home, intergenerational, multi-generational housing. And that's a shift that I would like to see. In other countries around the world, they wouldn't even think
Never.
of putting their loved ones in a long-term care.
You see this a lot in the Asian community. The elders stay at home. You see that a lot in a lot of Black Canadian families. There's no such thing. You keep the elders at home. But again, as you mentioned, it's a different world today. And I don't know that I would impose myself onto my children as much as I said, when mommy gets old, you guys, I'm moving into the basement. I may say that to them as a joke, but I don't know if their life will allow for that to happen in reality, really. So
yeah, it's a huge culture shift, I think, and something that takes a really long time. Yeah.
We're in the first kind of like quarter of the year. I mean, well, it's May. We're almost halfway there. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what's happening for the next couple of months or even for the year to come?
Lots of outings. Yeah, we have lots of outings.
Charlene opened her mouth and was like, yes, Charlene, tell me.
We have got tours, but they haven't gone anywhere in 2 years, so they want to go. So I think we're going to buy a bus because they just want to go everywhere. They're coming in 2-3 times a week. We have an ice cream stand not far down the road, so they grab their ice cream, come in here for a movie. Like, there is so much going on with our seniors, and they are so ready to be out there and active again.
It's so great. That's so great. My mom used to live, I'm sharing, sorry, I'm taking time away here to share about myself, but my mom used to live in an RPA, and during the pandemic, we actually moved her out of it, and it was really a senior community. You had to be 55 plus to go there, and her and my dad were both living there together, and then he passed away in 2016 of glioblastoma. He had a tumor, and so really when the pandemic happened, this isolation became also isolation / grief / I need to come home. And so we brought her to my house. And then in turn, we live in Laval. She got a condo right down the street from us. And that works for us. But there's something about her being in the RPA that she misses, which is everyday chatter, everyday gossip, coming down and being at the little cafe with all the other elders. And as much as her being near us is, you know, for us, kind of like we're being selfish because we want her near. She's missing out on that. And so I'm torn now with, okay, so does she go back, or do we, you know, do we leave her where she is? And she has no interest in going back, because even though she's 79, she's going to be 80. She's like, moi, je suis pas vieille, je suis tellement jeune, je veux pas retourner avec des petits vieux. And so for my mother, I look at this situation and it's really difficult, because here we are with someone who is now lonely, but also doesn't want to be isolated and, you know, feel as though I'm aging and I'm getting old in this home. So what do you do?
You know,
she joins neighbors.
Yeah, listen, we have virtual seniors programming at ACDPN. They do bingo online every week. They have a blast. You know, maybe this is, you know, we've been saying we need to expand. Maybe we need to head to Laval. But definitely there's been a lot of effort, as my colleagues have stated, in pivoting online, doing seniors courses to help them use the tech and the iPad. It doesn't replace anything, but there are more options for her to at least begin by connecting virtually.
That's it. And it's all about connecting also. Well, thank you so much to all of you. I'm going to take a minute here to play a reel, Doug, to showcase really the wonderful work that you've been doing. I thank you all for your time. Faye, Bridget, Joy, who left us, Charlene, and Ushana. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to watch the reel and see the wonderful work of SAQ. And we're not talking about alcohol here.
Yeah, I was talking with some friends the other day and saying how, like, I'm way down here in New Carlisle today. I'm a 2.5-hour drive from home in Douglastown, but yet we're like old friends.
That's right.
Because our schools get us together when we're young, and then when we get a little older, we get together for these festivals. And then when we get a whole lot older, well, Kaz envisioned to have these wellness days, and we all get together and have fun and laugh.
That's right. And we have a lot of people that are from the area that live away that, you know, join all the programming on the Gaspésian Way because they miss home. That's the main thing, it's home.
Yep.
The English-speaking community in the greater Quebec City region represents about 15,000 people. It's really spread out over a large territory. On one hand, it's hard for our seniors to connect amongst themselves, but it's also really hard for them to connect with the broader community. And depending on where they're located, they could be extremely isolated. And a lot of seniors, unfortunately, don't know about what's available in the community. And it's tough to go and get them.
Our goal really is to do everything we can to keep our seniors as healthy and autonomous as possible so they can stay home as long as possible. But what we try to do is make sure that these people that are living alone or who may be experiencing isolation a bit more than others, is that we try to get them out, get them connected to our services. Our outreach worker goes to visit them. I believe that we're an essential resource for the English-speaking community and a critical part of the ecosystem.
The English-speaking Black population, which is double minority because of language and culture, was pretty spread out across the island. So we are really trying to be that lifeline to say, we're going to create a safe space here for you, and we're going to bring in what you need because it is that important, right? So we bring to them a level of comfort that they need. So that, and we hold that really close to our hearts, right? We don't ruffle their feathers, we don't force them. Everything is on their time and in their schedule, and our responsibility is to make it okay for them.
There's a sense of ownership here. There's definitely a sense of ownership of the English-speaking community in Abitibi-Témiscamingue. What Neighbors is trying to ensure is that there's a sense of belonging. If you're not accessing the services, the fun, the theater, if you're not part of the everyday life, then you don't belong here. You own it, but you don't belong.
No, I've had tourists come up to me and say, we didn't know people in the Gaspé Coast spoke English. And I say, geez,
we've been here.
We have high schools, we have, you know, all kinds of festivals and activities, and we have a vital community that's living and growing and loving it here.
love it. Je me souviens, portraits of who we are. There it is, senioractionquebec.ca. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Really, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. Everyone on board, amazing. Thank you for your time once again. So do you want me to look in this one or that one? Yeah, we're gonna move around 2 seconds. I'm just gonna do the introduction. So this was great, moving along quite nicely. I'm having such a good time here. Let's do this every week. Okay. So we're moving on to Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network. And oh, again, Jesse, thank you so much. And Katya, thank you so much. Thank you to the both of you. How people learn about and reflect on history of English-speaking communities in Quebec influences how Anglophones see their place in society today. Community heritage is rarely, sorry about that, we're live, it's okay. Community heritage is rarely, if ever, learned at school. Luckily, many Quebecers can still learn to historical societies, archives, small museums, and other grassroots cultural organizations for information and stories about the places where they live. Some of the oldest heritage organizations in the province, in fact, were established by English-speaking Quebecers. These days, local heritage institutions in many Anglophone communities are struggling to exist. As English-speaking populations continue to decline, through its belonging and an identity, Small Grants Initiative, the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network, QAHN, supports member-led projects that can increase public knowledge of Quebec history and heritage, which are accessible to community members in English and in French. I'd like for you to see this reel.
Every day across this land, the stories we carry remind us who we are. Stories from and shaped by the past, stories about places where we live, about our connections with each other and the world we share. We tell these stories in words and in pictures. We write them down and we put them on display. Sometimes we set them to music. We are the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network, and we know our place in history. We are neighborhoods and communities, old and new, big and small, part of the story of Canada. We are more than 100 historical societies, museums, and cultural centers devoted to lifelong learning. From the Gaspé Peninsula and the Laurentians to the Eastern Townships to the island of Montreal and beyond, the history, heritage, and cultures of English-speaking Quebec matter to us. Our seminars and workshops have helped hundreds improve their knowledge of artifact conservation, fundraising, communications, and volunteer recruitment. Our quarterly magazine, Quebec Heritage News, features people, places, and perspectives you won't find in other publications. Heritage Talks, our winter lecture series, is free of charge and open to all. Our bilingual traveling exhibitions are also available on loan to schools, museums, libraries, and other public places. And since 2020, we've been helping English language researchers, curators, archivists, and other creators financially. Because history and culture belong to everyone. With funding from the Secretariat for Relations with English-speaking Quebecers, our Belonging and Identity Small Grants program has already generated local heritage investments of $100,000, supporting 21 great community learning projects. Last year, we were able to partner with 11 organizations. We worked with the Canadian Centre for the Great War in Montreal to create a digital exhibit about the experiences of Quebec soldiers recruited to serve during World War I. We helped the Société d'Histoire du Canton d'Orford produce a series of podcasts about early settlement history in Orford Township. And we supported efforts by Vision Gaspé Percé Now to showcase the culture and heritage of English-speaking Gaspésians. Hundreds of community members gathered in Douglastown for a long-awaited festival after months of pandemic restrictions. At Bishop's University in Lennoxville, the Eastern Township's Resource Center mounted outdoor and virtual exhibitions about the region's hidden Black history, and we hope more scholarship will follow as a result. And together with QUESCREN Canada, QUAHN produced a free outdoor music concert and workshop at a Montreal cafe, recalling the city's historic place at the center of Yiddish culture in North America. Music was also the inspiration for a feature-length film documentary produced by our partner, the Morin Heights Historical Association. The film celebrates the Laurentian town's remarkable legacy as a magnet for musicians and international recording stars. Myland Memories documented the history of the Irish community in Montreal's Mile End neighborhood and created a new public walking tour based on their research. The Colby Curtis Museum in Stansted is working with volunteers to gather stories and portraits of elders for an upcoming exhibit on the history of daily life in this unique town along the Quebec-Vermont border. The Quebec Genealogical E-Society hosted a bilingual conference on family history in the province, with sessions on ancestral research in different cultural communities. In Hudson, discovery of a rare early map of Lower Canada in its collection prompted the Greenwood Centre for Living History to create online learning materials exploring how maps were used in the 18th century to foster a British sense of identity among early colonists. And the Richmond County Historical Society worked with local partners to produce a trilingual interpretation panel in Abenaki, English, and French to go with a new outdoor heritage mural. The mural is a tribute to Indigenous, Irish, English, French, and Dutch peoples who have contributed to the area's social and economic history. Stories bring us together, and the story of Quebec includes English voices. To learn more about Quebec heritage wherever you live, visit your local museum and find out how you can support history learning in your community. And be sure to subscribe to Quebec Heritage News, because there's a place in history for everyone. Do you know yours?
Do you know yours? That was amazing. I am joined by Dwayne Wilkin as well as Sandra Stock, and that was your voice that we heard on the video.
Yes, it was.
And
Thanks.
so I wanted to ask you, you said history's for everyone. And so ask you really, what is the work that you do here with this association?
Well, our association works with the people who really do the work on the ground, which are the volunteers, like my colleague, Sandra Stock, and hundreds of others who work in communities across Quebec and who have done so for decades in history societies, small museums, cultural centers, libraries, heritage organizations. Heritage is a very vast field of interest. So these groups are the ones preserving our history and our heritage. What QUAHN does, our network, is bring them together and help them have a stronger voice with, among other things, funders, but also with other members of Quebec society. I was listening to the Hunt family and telling their story as a part of the Black Community Research Center's project. This is exactly what community history is all about. It's about recording those detailed histories, those micro histories that don't turn up in grand narratives. We're all about collecting the smaller narratives that feed the grand narrative. And that can't be done in schools. It can't be done in with textbooks. It certainly can't be done with government curricula. It's done by communities, people like Sandra and others who are writers, who know the history. That's what we do, is we help bring them together. We publish our magazine.
Quebec Heritage?
Yeah, we got a great website with full of stories. I invite everybody to check it out. It's www.QAHN.org. Lots of information has been published on that website about our communities. As you know, the English-speaking community of Quebec is very diverse, but not all stories have been collected. They'll never be collected, but we're doing that through in cooperation with our members.
Dwayne, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. I just want Sandra to introduce herself and talk to us about the wonderful work that you do, because Dwayne just said you're doing some projects with him, you're out, you're doing some volunteering. So tell us about what you've been doing. Oh, is her mic working? There you go.
Thank you.
Put it closer to your mouth.
All right.
There you go.
Okay, this is a bit of a surprise for me. Until yesterday, I didn't know I would be here and doing this. However, the most important thing that I felt I've done since I've been involved with history and heritage of English-speaking Quebecers was when I first started, and I was living up north in Morton Heights, where I'm from, and we started interviewing older people. Morton Heights was initially settled by Irish immigrants, very poor, who were more or less dumped in the wilderness, given huge land grants that were mainly swamps and lakes and so on, and managed to survive very well there. This was back in the 1840s. By the time I came along to interview some of their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, the community had more or less, in a way, lost a kind of identity. And by having them speak about what they remembered, what they'd been told about what it was like back in former times, it managed to perhaps recreate a kind of community identity. We started producing magazines, which was important, and we set up the Morton Heights Historical Association, which has gone on now for almost 25 years, which is quite good. It was very bilingual right from the beginning. Our community had always been both English and French speaking. Interestingly enough, until my generation and younger, most people didn't know the other language, and yet they worked together, they got along well, and so on. Right now, the Morton Heights Historical is still functioning. They managed to do a film on what I would call very recent history, the 1960s and 70s, when it became a focus for world-class, a world-class recording studio in Morton Heights. Although there was a musical history long before that, they'd still preserved a lot of the traditional Irish music, which more or less died out as television came in the 50s. But as a small child, I could remember this going on. Also, Morton Heights always was an artistic area. We had a lot of artists, including people who were attached to the Group of Seven. It's still very active in visual arts. I'm trying to think what else to say.
And you said something that's really important here. You talked about over time, community identity kind of like disappeared.
Yes.
And so I want to bring it back to you, Dwayne, because this is really interesting. We heard it over there with the Black Community Resource Center. They were talking about belonging and identity and making sure that's preserved. Is this why heritage work is so important?
I think that's part of it. I think that through the research and the storytelling that goes on in the communities whom we represent, a sense of belonging is constructed. We're not an organization devoted to belonging. I have to be clear. We've been funded for a project that needed to fit into a particular theme. But in essence, that's what we have always been doing. I mean, by we, our member organizations in the community. People want to share their stories. They want to feel that their lives and the history of their communities meant something.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that really is to find ways to express it, to share it with others. We do it with our magazine. We're still old-fashioned. This is a print magazine, and it gets mailed to your house if you subscribe. But we've also learned how to do it in different ways. As I mentioned in the introductory video, we work with communities to help them bring their stories to life in exhibits, in traveling exhibits, in videos, in oral history projects. We have done a number of projects. I've been around for a long time. This is my 22nd year, I think. And we've gone through a number of different, we've addressed this challenge in many different ways. But let me just add one thing. The support that we receive from the Secretariat is very vital because our communities are beginning to die off. I can use that word. Most of our members are situated outside of the region of Montreal, and they are not strong communities with strong institutions anymore. Some of their last institutions that they have control of are the local history societies, the local museums that they started, the collections and the artifacts that together they have protected, which is a part of Quebec heritage, which belongs to all Quebecers. I'd like to turn that word of belonging around for a moment. English-speaking history and heritage belongs to all Quebecers and Canadians.
Did you want to add to that, Sandra?
No, because I agree completely. For once, I don't have anything more to add.
And so the importance of the Anglophone community here, you know, you wanted to speak on the Anglophone aspect of it. Why is that so important?
I don't think that this isn't a criticism so much as it is the reality. When young people, it's interesting, all the groups that I've worked with these last 2 years through the community initiative, they're all touching on this question of belonging and identity in slightly different ways. But two things stand out for me. There is an educational component, which LEARN, of course, has been really, really good at reaching out to and serving. And then there's the other end. Most of our members are seniors. Most of our volunteers are elderly people, some of them teachers, ex-teachers like Sandra, a lot of them actually. Some of them who want to carry on in their vocation, which is education. Museums, history societies, cultural organizations are all means of continuing education in smaller communities. I don't think that is appreciated all the time in communities that may not have any institutions where culture is accessible in English.
Right.
It's often a history society or a small museum, a nonprofit private museum, probably underfunded or not funded at all through the Quebec Ministry for Culture and Communications, that is providing that venue to tell those stories and to bring elderly people together to share their knowledge. It's about knowledge and the preservation of knowledge for future generations. I don't know what the future holds.
Right.
But you know, as long as there are the Sanders of the world working in these organizations, writing down their stories, working on history projects like oral history projects, there will be knowledge to share in the future.
In the years to come. And so I have to ask you, you spoke really quickly about it, about funding. Where does the funding come from for QUAHN?
Well, in the very early years, Bill Flock is here, so I'm going to do a shout out for him. Bill Flock was, I wasn't right there at the beginning, but so the myth, but I think it's true, is that Bill saw an opportunity to support history societies through federal government funding, specifically the Official Languages Support Programs branch. And he was right. And so in the year 2000, after a conference organized and funded in part through the federal government at Bishop's University, a number of history societies, of which Sandra's group from Morin Heights was a founding member, got together and founded our network. That was over 20 years ago. Since then, our core funding, that is the operational funding we receive each year, has come from the Department of Canadian Heritage. But in the last 2 years, thanks to, again, I think Bill's work and efforts on our behalf at the Secretariat for Relations with English-speaking Quebecers, we, along with the other groups here today, have received project funding. And so our Belonging and Identity project has been supported by the Secretariat for Relations with English-speaking Quebecers, as have some of our other activities. We still receive most of our funding through the federal government and through two private foundations, Chalkers Foundation and the Zellers Foundation, for our Heritage Talks lecture series. But yeah, we're very grateful for the support that came from the province of Quebec. It was a long time coming. We're grateful to receive it.
And so you know, how does QAHN help local heritage groups? You were talking about Morin Heights before. How do you specifically help local groups?
Mainly through financial support
Okay.
that can help them. Also by encouraging them to do something, and to also by, there's a kind of collegiality with QAHN. You get to meet other groups from other parts of the province and see what they're doing. You can discuss with them. You can, you find out you aren't alone, that how they handled various problems, various situations. Also, the groups themselves are extremely diverse. There's some very old historical societies in the Eastern Townships and so on, which have several buildings, they have endowments, they have all kinds of stuff, like the one in Knowlton and so on. And then there are the newer ones, like the one in Morin Heights, where if you want to do an exhibit or something, you use a community center and you borrow things from people and they take it home with them. They do different kinds of things. Then we also have a mixture of urban and rural. It's a very, very diverse, even within Montreal itself. The English-speaking communities is plural, and the only thing in common really is our common language, and to some extent, the common history of being in Quebec.
Do you have to identify as Anglophone or English-speaking to belong to QAHN?
Absolutely not.
Necessarily.
Okay.
We've had input and projects that have gone on in some areas of Quebec where there is no longer a real English-speaking community, say up around Arvida and up around Lac-Saint-Jean, areas like that.
One of our groups, if I may just interject, one of our newest members is the Société d'Histoire de Canton Orford. This is a francophone organization based in Canton d'Orford, which is the old Orford Township near Magog. Settled originally by English speakers, but today, you know, these people have formed a society. They want to know, investigate, and share their local history, and so it's an Anglophone history they are sharing, but they're doing it in French for the most part. With our help, they joined QAHN a couple of years ago. They've been doing great work, and we've been introducing them to other networks, other organizations in our network, and that's how we build collegiality amongst the different language groups and cultural groups in the English-speaking community.
20 years is still, it says 20 years and counting right there on your poster.
We're not
right?
done yet.
20 years and counting. And so what a difference from 2002 to 2022. How are you seeing the difference?
We have a lot more members and
A lot more help, yeah.
We're more established.
Yes.
There's been a kind of progression, I'd say. Our magazine, which now is very professional looking, started off as a small newsletter, and it developed over time, getting more and more, and finally made the big breakthrough, having color photography in it and things like that. Although most of our writers, there's a certain kind of stable of writers who've been with us right from the beginning in many cases, who we can count on to do contributions, perhaps of areas of Quebec's history and aspects that wouldn't be covered otherwise. Unfortunately, in the secondary school system, the teachers and so on are stuck with a curriculum set by the Ministry of Education, and they're more or less, and the teacher is more or less trapped with teaching to an exam. It's very general. It often doesn't relate at all to the students sitting in the classroom. They don't see themselves in this. Whereas the kind of thing we do that covers many different communities, many of which have been neglected or excluded for whatever reason over time, we've been able to bring them in and make this history available to everyone.
And so before I leave you both here, is there a message that you'd like to relay for the people at home? Is there a place where people can get involved and volunteer and perhaps help out? What is the message you want to tell people watching?
Well, I would begin by inviting everyone to look in their community and see if there is already a history society or a heritage organization or a small museum that you haven't visited in a long time. The pandemic's over.
Yeah.
You can visit this summer, and I'll tell you what, they'd be really happy to see you. Show up, see what's going on. Think about a story in your community that you think could be told, and have a chat with the curator or the local historian. She might even be an old teacher of yours. You can get involved that way. You can help share stories. Let's do this together. And by the way, I want to be introduced to the Hunt family because they've got a great story. It should be in Quebec Heritage News. Anyway,
there you
thank
go.
you very much, Catherine.
Thank you so much. There you have it. Dwayne Wilkins, Sandra Stock. Thank you so much, QAHN, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I'd like to take just 2 minutes here to speak to you about why for why before we move. So for the past 2 years, You Are Here, the Belonging Project has driven youth in multiple regions of the province to engage their peers in a fun process of research, outreach, and event creation with a singular theory in mind, that by giving youth the chance to experience and share in local English-speaking heritage, they will feel an increased sense of belonging to the place they call home. This initiative aims to strengthen the sense of belonging of English-speaking youth through community events and intergenerational conversations that celebrate culture, heritage, and of course, everything in between. Activities are organized with the help of youth cultural ambassadors, they're called YCAs, from the following regions. We have the North Shore, Eastern Townships, Gaspé-des-Îles, Quebec City, Outaouais, the Laurentians, Abitibi-Témiscamingue, and of course, Montreal. All youth-led events were open to the public at large and well attended by community members of all ages. So before I introduce you to Adrian Winrow, I'd like for you to just see this highlight right here, this highlight reel. Doug, take it away.
Hi, I'm Santana, and I was the Roman Youth Cultural Ambassador for the Belonging Project this year. So instead of being in one specific community, I was working throughout Quebec, trying to find new organizations and people that we could bring the Belonging Project to that we hadn't previously in the past. So this year has been a crazy year. It's been also a lot of fun, and I've had a really great time. I've been lucky enough to organize 3 events. So the first one was a paint night that was going to be in the Montérégie region. The second event I did this year was the Zine 101 project. So I worked with a local artist, Morgan. We worked together to come up with the webinar, and then she led a class, and we had an interactive session that was meant to let people get creative and let loose a little bit. So that was a lot of fun. That happened at the beginning of March, and we were super lucky to work with her. The final event I have is hopefully next week, and it's going to be a conversation with a local group about belonging. So I'm working with a local organization that has a chapter in Montreal on how to bring up the conversation of belonging, especially in a peace context and peace education, because that's what they're known for. So this project is so important because finding connections in your community is one of the ways where people feel truly at home. So especially in COVID, when everyone was stuck inside, a lot of people lost those community connections they had through people moving on, or things changing or closing or starting up again. And so the Belonging Project is so important to get people back invested in the wellness of their communities, and getting them connections, getting them friends. Truly, the Belonging Project does a great job of giving people a better feeling of home where they live. So I'm so happy to have been a part of it, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future.
The Belonging Project has given me a purpose and a reason to explore more of this region than I was initially planning to. I was able to meet so many different people, from youth as well as elders and everyone in between. My activities were able to give students an understanding of what it was that made Abitibi so special. And I was also able to connect young people with seniors and bridge that gap in communication through sending cards and creating artwork for retirees in the local retirement home.
Hi, I am Ramin Ali. Currently, I am the YCA at Quebec City. I've been working on the Belonging Project for about a month now. Personally, I feel very passionate about the goal that we have here at the project, was to increase the inclusion and belonging of the English-speaking youth in Quebec City. I've been holding an event at my cégep called the Belonging Lunch, where we'll have a bunch of youth sit down and discuss issues they face in the Quebec community and what they can do to improve and help feel more belonged in the community. We'll also have some fun activities and games and food to help create a safe space for the youth to discuss these issues. I've also created a podcast to talk more about the project and my event, and with Voice of English Quebec, which is going to be out soon. And personally, it was a great experience learning about this project and meeting with new people, and it was really a great pleasure to be part of this project.
Hi everyone, I'm the YCA for GASBZ, and over these last couple months I've really enjoyed my experience. My 3 activities for the Belonging Project were after hours at the museum, paint night in Bearschwa, and Mandela meditation. I've really enjoyed getting to know my home better and helping the overall community increase their sense of belonging. I'm truly thankful for this project, that they get to help so many small English communities across the province not only get to know each other better, but to get to know themselves better. And without projects like this, the English community might not otherwise get an opportunity to participate in activities in English.
For me, the Belonging Project really was an opportunity to get to know my community better as a youth and to get to know the people who live in my community. Some real highlights for me was when so many people came to my event in St. Sauveur. That was really awesome, and if I had known, I would have done more capacity, but I just had no idea that there would be such a hit with that event at the ski museum. And of course, also, even with the hike, I animated that or facilitated it myself, so it was really, really special to have done the research and then to share that with other youth, because it was more of a youth-focused event. And lastly, meeting Penny Rose, that is such an incredible opportunity. She hosted a bunch of shows in Morin Heights where she rented a house and sort of created a DIY folk music community there, or was, instrumental in creating it. So really, really special opportunities for us to connect with these community leaders, whereas otherwise, maybe you're interested in something, but there's no way to actually connect yourselves with the Belonging Project and feel like we are really contributing to our community and that we're really taking our place here. So
this project has been really special to me. I only hope that I have helped bring more Anglophone Montrealers connected with the amazing diverse multiculturalism in Montreal. I took people to the Eco Museum out in the West Island, where it's a zoo, an outdoor zoo, where it only showcases Quebec wildlife. And for my second and last event, I'm really excited. We're going to be doing a fun little bake-along with a local Montreal chef with one of the recipes that she grew up with. So it's going to be more homey, and it really reflects the theme of belonging, I feel. As an Anglophone in Quebec, this was a project that really, really resonated with me, and I think that it is very important. So thank you so much, Y4Y, for having me.
Well, that is amazing. Youth for Youth Quebec. And I love seeing all these young faces. I'm now joined by the executive director, and you said you were on mat leave, so congratulations for the past year.
Thanks,
Is your mic on?
I think so. Thank you,
Can you guys hear her? Okay, perfect. And so In seeing all these wonderful faces and so many communities across Quebec being affected by this, so how did the project really make everybody come together here through Y4Y?
Thanks for the introduction, Catherine. And I thank the young people. Pardon me? Is it on? Okay, that's okay. Thanks. And I loved watching the young people who acted as youth cultural ambassadors also talking about their own experience and the way they connected their peers through this project. So I want to say that the Belonging Project allowed our organization to stay connected with English-speaking communities across the province throughout the pandemic. You know, across distance in spite of the pandemic, and the amazing creativity of these young people who worked hard on the project, brought their incredible creativity and their own networks into the project. I mean, that's what made it possible, that's what made it fun, and that's why we're so excited to continue for another year.
You've been part of this organization for quite some time, so what have you seen and why is it so important for you to be working with youth?
Gosh,
where does that come from? Yeah.
I mean, it's the raison d'etre of our organization. Young people need more English-speaking youth in this province need more opportunities to feel connected across distance, to feel part of something larger than just their local communities or just their school community, and acknowledging that there are other English-speaking communities across the province is really important to their overall sense of belonging to Quebec society. And so that's our main goal, and we hope to achieve that through projects like this, through other initiatives, and by getting them to know one another better.
And how, you know, we've seen it because they were showcasing their projects. I saw the one there in the Laurentians and another one with the CBC. And so what has been the reaction really with this project?
I think, I mean, we were welcomed by community organizations in the localities where we were working. I think outreach to young people is always a little bit tricky. Young people are involved in school life and family obligations, in work life that's often part-time, or maybe they're holding multiple jobs. They have a social life in person, they have a social life online.
Yeah.
and so getting them involved in community organization work is not always the easiest thing. Having one organization that for whom it's the focus of all activities to get youth involved, I think has been very welcomed by other community organizations.
And so, of course, we know the theme here today has been about belonging, the English language, being an English Quebecer. And so when you're seeing young faces speak out about how they're trying to help communities get involved and really feel as though they belong as an English speaker, where are you seeing the future in this for youth? Y4Y. And so where are you really what are you really transitioning to for the next couple of years?
That's an interesting question. I think I could go on for a little bit longer than you want me to on that question.
I'm here for you.
We're a youth-led organization, so that means we have to listen first and act upon what we're told by young people are the priorities for the wider community. What we're hearing most often from young people is that diversity is key, inclusion is key, and I think having young people lead the way in that effort is incredibly important. We need to all embrace that young people, for young people, this is a priority.
Yeah,
top of mind.
Absolutely. I see it in the project. I see what you're doing there. In the real, we see a lot of individuals, you know, focusing on a certain thing. Do you speak to every single one of those groups and young people and tell them what they need to be working on these projects, or do they decide on their own? And you say, free range, do it here. Here's what you need. It needs to be done by this time, and make sure the community is involved.
That's a great question. So the way we had them work was by the young people themselves devised cultural learning plans. We abbreviated that by CLPs. Okay. So cultural learning plans are devised at the beginning of the project after a bit of exploration as to what's available in terms of investigating history and culture in their local communities. They put together these plans and they carry them out, but they carry them out with other people along for the ride. Other young people, their peers in their school community and in their friend groups. And then there's an intergenerational aspect, so they do outreach themselves to the older generation and ask them to come along for the ride. The work of the cultural learning plan following a set plan for visiting local heritage sites, museums, and having intergenerational conversations, etc.
You're kind of echoing what we were just talking about here with QAHN, you know, heritage, history, culture, community. And so why is that so important? And why do you think it's important especially in the younger generation, whereas over here, it was an older generation, and we were talking about some of it being lost along the way over the years. And so here we're starting fresh young faces, half my age, even younger. And so why is it so important to do it this way?
Young people are seeking a sense of belonging, just as everyone else is. Sense of belonging amongst young people is different than it is from what an older generation would tell you is important to them, to feel a sense of belonging. And yet, it couldn't be more important than ever, than it is now, for young people to feel a sense of belonging. Sense of belonging means that for I think what we saw through our project was a sense of place, a sense of being a part of the wider society, of participation in that, ability to participate in that society, and connecting with others. Virtual connection is not the same as being in person. We're so glad to be getting back to in-person events, and yet these young people showed us through this project that they're very capable of creating fun, interesting activities for their peers and for the wider community, even virtually.
And I have to say, because, you know, despite the project being so great, throughout the project, we have learned that there's a lot of proactive and driven English-speaking youth who want to help others across Quebec. Can you tell us about some of the main concerns youth have when it comes to belonging and working on a project like this?
Sure. Whether or not they're connected to the sense of belonging, the issues that are constantly raised by young people that we speak to through our projects are issues regarding mental health and the services that are available to them or unavailable to them in terms of taking care of themselves. Certainly climate change, the climate crisis is of great importance to young people and youth culture.
Do you see that a lot? People voicing and speaking about how they'd like to change that?
I think so.
Really?
Absolutely. There's also language issues. They consume a lot of media, and you know, there's been a lot of conversation about the immediate effects of the current reality, the current political climate, what that's going to mean for them in the very near future. We always get concerns about language issues. There's an awareness that the English-speaking community is a minority community of Quebec, and it's interesting to see how that awareness is kind of just is coming to the foreground of their experience and what they're communicating. You know, different stages, different experiences at the high school level versus the CEGEP level, and different levels of political engagement. So all that's very interesting. There's also something that my colleague Charlene mentioned, having to move away from home for schooling is a big issue for a lot of young people, particularly in the regions of Quebec. And they need to feel welcome no matter where they go in this province. And so having a strong sense of belonging, a strong sense of place within society is really, really important.
How can we, as a community, a society, help with their initiative?
Help with the young people's
Yes.
initiative? Oh gosh, be encouraging, be supportive, show up to their events. Youth have proven through our project, at least, that they can create amazing activities and events for their communities. And so we're going to continue to give them those opportunities. With a little bit of support from an organization like ours, they can create amazing things for everybody.
So I'm going to ask you to move over here just
thing.
a little bit so we can see the poster here. Get involved in your community. It says visit y4yquebec.org, I think. Yes, it does. And so that's one way that people can get more information. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? I'd like to come here because the camera's right there. Is there anything else for people watching? There's some people online. Some people are going to see this later on YouTube. What would be the message you'd like to relay to them?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's so much to say, but we're looking forward to year 3 of the Belonging Project because we want to continue this work. This has been an amazing showcase of all the projects that have been done with this particular funding. I think it's been this constitutes a great document for our community. The message that Y4Y carries with it is that all young people in this province deserve to feel that they can build a life in Quebec. It's crucial that English-speaking youth have a strong sense that they're part of something bigger, a wider community of folks across the province who identify with the English-speaking communities of Quebec. We understand that a sense of belonging among youth is just one of many crucial factors in their ability to envision themselves as part of Quebec society as a whole. So, there you go.
I love it. Thank you so much. You said
Thank
you
you,
were nervous
Catherine.
at the beginning.
Thank
You
you,
did
Catherine.
great. You did
Thanks.
great. You did great.
Catherine.
So nice to meet you. Congratulations. And thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. Okay, so we're going to move on. We are moving on, everyone. I'm coming towards you. How are you? It's
Fabulous.
lovely to see you. And so I have this lovely introduction first that I'd like to take care of. And we're speaking, of course, here, English Language Arts Network. So ELAN's featured length documentary, What We Choose to Remember, was created on the 50th anniversary of the October crisis. And I know Betty worked on this, Betty Esperanza, so very interesting here. This was an important and opportune moment to interview eyewitnesses about events that had such a profound impact on Quebec history. It also seemed like a significant benchmark moment to examine how much the Anglo and Allophone communities have changed over the past 50 years. Anglos and Allophones have had major contributions to Quebec's economy and its social fabric. These contributions deserve to be better recognized by the majority community, and which is still trading in myths. We'll talk about that in just a second. Bill 96 has, of course, changed that a little bit, created some tensions, and increased the need for Anglos and Allophones to feel as though they belong right here in Quebec. And so I'd like to introduce to you Guy Rex Roger. Welcome. He's the writer, the director, the producer of the documentary film, What We Choose to Remember. And so before we go into the movie itself, I have to ask you, I just mentioned that this was, the documentary was created on the 50th anniversary of the October crisis. So what did you learn in making this film?
Well, I did not grow up in Quebec. I arrived here in 1980, the year of the first referendum. And I was actually at the National Theatre School, which is a bilingual school, and there were two groups of people who would not talk to one another. Really.
Surprisingly.
It was totally polarized.
Really?
Yeah, because of the politics, because of the first referendum. And I've spent all of those intervening years trying to kind of understand what's going on. So it took me a long time to understand what had happened in Quebec during the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And when we were making the film, we realized it was the 50th anniversary of the October crisis. So people my age and older were eyewitnesses to the bombings in the 1960s, which we're going to see a little bit of in the reel we're going to play, and also of the October crisis. And it helped me to understand the English-speaking community and how it had evolved, and why, in some ways, it was so disconnected from the French-speaking community. But if you've grown up with bombs in your schoolyard, it kind of makes it hard to really feel close to the people who are setting off the bombs,
Oh my, okay, that's very interesting. So the feedback, I mean, we're going to come back to that in just a moment. So the feedback from this documentary has been overwhelmingly positive. I know this because I've spoken to people who have worked on the project. And so was this always the goal? Did you want people to really have this great response to the documentary?
As I said, I've been thinking about this story for more than 40 years, trying to understand. I'm married to a Francophone.
Okay.
My kids went to French schools, so I've
fully bilingual, your children?
Totally.
Okay.
My son, you'd never guess which he is. So I've sort of been part of both communities, partly as an outsider, trying to understand. So I've had an idea of the film. I've been thinking of people I'd like to talk to, and because of the Secretariat, 2 years ago, we had funding to do a project about identity and belonging. So we thought about, how do you interview people? I mean, we've seen the massive diversity, ethnicity, language, countries that people come from, regions they live in, old people who have memories, young people who have hopes and dreams. So who do you interview? And we spent ages trying to think of, of the 1 million people who are English speakers in Quebec, how do you select 25 or 30 who are in some way representative of that large, extremely diverse community?
So how did you choose that?
Well, we finally hit upon the idea of waves of immigration, because really this is a story of immigrants arriving in Nouvelle-France and after. So by looking at it in terms of waves of immigration, we found a way to fit everybody into this story. So the first wave, for example, we had to pick the periods that we were going to look at. So the first wave ends in 1945. 1945 for a couple of reasons, or a few reasons. It was the end of the period of what we would call the two solitudes. It was the end of the period when English and French was really the dominant conversation. It was also the year that Hugh MacLellan wrote Two Solitudes. So the end of the war changed everything in Quebec. And we always think about that period as being the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, the waspy elitists. And what we found when we were trying to recruit for the film, and we started looking at the communities that existed, yes, there were a lot of people who came from the British Isles. There's a long standing Black community in Quebec that often gets forgotten. There was a huge Yiddish-speaking community in Quebec by 1945. third largest community in Quebec by far. And there's a Chinese community that goes back to the 19th century. So even in that very first wave, we're not talking about some sort of homogenous white Anglo-Saxon Protestant group. So as we just, in each wave, we discovered details of the people who arrived, the conditions under which they arrived, and how they adapted to this evolving social contract in Quebec.
And so I have to ask you, throughout this project here, what were you able to see? And what, you're talking about different backgrounds. You talked about the Asian community, you talked about the Black community, Irish, Yiddish, all kinds of people coming here. What have you noticed in terms of the English language in all of those communities in coming together and really creating Quebec?
Well, there's a few interesting things we found, which some of these have been really interesting to Francophones who've watched the film. One is that back in the days when we had a Catholic and Protestant school system, prior to the change to linguistic school boards, the Catholic school board was much less inclined to welcome immigrants who were not Catholic. So once you start having large groups of people who were Yiddish, who were Jewish, Islamic, Greek Orthodox even, Protestants of course, even French-speaking Huguenots who were Protestants, even Italian Catholics in some cases had a hard time getting into Catholic schools.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, in some cases they went to bilingual schools, which is the whole story behind Bill 63, the abolition of the English side of the school.
Okay.
So you get this demographic time bomb being created by all of these people being pushed into the English school system, many against their will. I mean, we have people in the film who arrived from, say, Morocco, no English, but because they were Jewish, into the English school system.
Got it.
And then you get it, once the nationalists realize, whoa, these immigrants are not integrating here, we have a serious problem, then you get the opposite. Then you get people being pushed into the Catholic system. And I say pushed because there could have been a more welcoming approach. A lot of people felt that they had no choice. They had no choice before, they had no choice again. And then of course we had that moment when Jacques Parizeau blames the failure of the second referendum on money, and we know what that represents, and le vote ethnique. So all of these ethnic communities that have been sort of knocked around back and forth for decades, and we're kind of back there again with Bill 96. I don't know if we want to talk about that.
If you weren't going to touch on it, I was going to make sure you were going to touch on it. So I actually need your opinion on that. That's you did this documentary. I know a lot of people wanted to tiptoe around the issue. I don't want you to. I want you to explain how this is affecting. And I don't necessarily mean, for people who were born here. And I really, Bill 96, how it's affecting immigrants. So really, when it comes to English language and Bill 96 being, I think it's a week now, a week and a half?
It's been a week, yeah.
Okay, so how is that affecting our English community?
Let me give you two examples of where, because nobody we interviewed disagreed that the French language and culture are fragile. There's this 9 million people, well, 8 million French-speaking people, 1 million Anglophone, allophones, in a sea of about 360 million English, Spanish speakers. So, there's a big sea of people who speak English, so it puts the French language at some kind of a threat. We understand that. Most of us have learned French. Many people have sent their kids to school in French. Many people work in French. Many people use French as the public language. So we get all of that. But then how do you actually deal with the problem?
That's it.
So when we're talking about CEGEPs, what we have is yet again, this little wall put around these people who have federal constitutional rights, the so-called historical Anglophones. Now, that's a whole hornet's nest once you get into that, who that includes, why, but more importantly, who it excludes. And it really seems to be not so much about punishing the English-speaking community, although it will have that effect. It's more about, once again, saying, all of you allophones, we don't want you. You may have done 12 years of schooling in French. You're fully integrated. You're fully assimilated. Your friends are Francophones. But we think that if you do 2 years in a CEGEP, we could lose you. As if they're not going to go to university in English if they want to anyway, in Quebec, outside Quebec. But it just seems to be an extremely paternalist notion that we're just not going to let these people do CEGEP. To what end? I mean, how is this really affecting the French language? And the other clause— Do
you think that's a myth associated with all of this when people say there's a danger of the language disappearing, declining? You did say it was fragile. So we'll say that. I'm the perfect example, grew up in a French household. Now 90% English at my house because I married an Anglophone. what my mom would say, ben voyons que tout là, qu'est-ce que tu fais? So really, is that where we say that it's at a danger of, kind of, dissipating?
Okay, there's a few things. I'll come back to the second point I was going to make in a minute. There is the threat to the French language. And yes, I mean, I was listening to a Francophone radio program a few weeks ago where parents were being asked if they wanted their kids to grow up to be bilingual.
Right.
And, apparently hundreds of people called in, and the response was about 98% saying, yes, we want our kids to be bilingual. That's a fact, So we're dealing with factual things. And the problems that we could be dealing with in Quebec, if we really wanted to fix the French language, are illiteracy. Terribly high rate of illiteracy in Quebec. High school dropout rate. Terribly high dropout rate. I mean, these are things that the Quebec government could be investing in, should be investing in to protect French language and culture. Then you have the whole question of immigrants and support for language skills. I've been learning French now for years, and we're going to probably talk in French in a minute. I still have an accent.
That's okay.
Fairly strong accent.
Okay.
My kids laugh at me. They go, voyons donc, papa, après tout ces années. But immigrants, especially if somebody arrives here and their professional skills are not recognized and they're working some sort of menial, minimum wage job, maybe 2 jobs, and they're raising a family and they're trying to learn French, they need support.
Yes.
And so one of the things that just shows how badly thought out Bill 96 is this notion that people have only 6 months to learn French. Now, clearly what they're saying is, we've given too many immigrants too long to learn French. They integrate into the English-speaking community. We want to put a fence around them, cut that out. And at a sort of cold-blooded, bureaucratic, logical level, 6 months, sure. And then we cut it off and they become French. But in reality, what's going to happen? I mean, they're not going to be fully functional.
No.
So they're going to be accused of rejecting the majority community by turning towards the English-speaking community. The English-speaking community is going to be accused of sabotaging the national agenda. Nothing's going to change. So in 15 years or 20 years, we're going to be back here tightening the bolts once again. So there are many things that Bill 96 could be doing that all of us would agree with that it is not doing, and that's the problem.
Well, before we continue, we would like to show you a reel. Doug, please show us this reel here for the English Language Arts Network.
Can you identify this flag?
Definitely something to do with Quebec because of the symbols. So let's go City of Montreal.
Do you know what the 5 floral emblems represent?
The fleur de lis is for Quebec. The one below is, I believe, a thistle for maybe Scotland, Scottish heritage.
Montreal is one of the largest French-speaking cities in the world. So why do 3 of the 5 floral emblems represent English-speaking countries?
Pourquoi les 3 des 5 représentent des pays anglophones? Yeah boy.
Ah, ça j'en ai aucune idée.
Most Montrealers do not know the history represented by the flag of their own city. This is odd in a land whose motto declares the importance of remembering. The inhabitants of Montreal do remember that it was once part of Nouvelle-France. The French-speaking population of the territory was outnumbered by the English speakers of British North America, 70,000 to 1,600,000. By the mid-1800s, the rapidly growing English-speaking population of Montreal had passed 50%. The future appeared predictable and inevitable.
When my ancestors arrived, there was roughly an equal number of English and French in Montreal. There were a lot of Irish people here already.
The street I lived on High Street, and when I was growing up, there were no French families there.
It's really changed during my lifetime. In the Montreal I grew up in, it was quite possible to continue in the English language and never touch the French language except for peripherally.
My parents left Italy after the end of the Second World War. The country was ravaged economically. very unstable politically.
Well, Hungary was in the middle of an uprising in '56.
My mother was fleeing from the Cultural Revolution in China.
Grandparents spoke perfect French, perfect Moroccan French, not Quebecois French. So there was no English in their household. They spoke French, and they spoke French to my parents. But my parents then, my dad went to an English school.
When my grandparents, my father arrived, he was 7, just about 8 years old. And at that point, there was absolutely no Bill 101. He was an immigrant and he was Jewish. There was no way that he would be accepted in the Francophone schools.
Anecdotally, I think it's well understood that Quebecois did turn away a lot of immigrant kids from their schools back in the 40s and 50s and even into the early 60s.
The French-speaking Catholic school system had created a demographic time bomb by pushing away so many immigrants. The unstable, volatile situation exploded between the FLQ violence of the 1960s and the second referendum in 1995.
It's my first year teaching, and of course we did have the bomb threats.
A lot of fear, especially around the FLQ, because of, you know, the threat of violence.
If I go back to grade 2 or grade 3, I remember being told that I could no longer walk to school. It was an 8 or a 10 block walk because mailboxes were blowing up in our neighborhood.
Do you remember how many bombings the FLQ was responsible for between 1963 and 1970?
I was shocked from that film how many there were.
The National Revenue Building, the RCMP headquarters, the Canadian National Railways, the Black Watch Armory, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and Queen Victoria Monument. In 7 years, 6 people were killed. But Walter Leger survived a direct blast while trying to defuse a bomb in a mailbox in Westmount.
That guy was the nephew of our next door neighbor.
It was a scary time because the conspiracies were abound. Like once we get separated, all the immigrants will lose their houses. It'll be our houses.
For our family, and I'd probably say, you know, much of the Chinese community, 70s and 80s, sadness. 90s, fear.
My choice of Quebec goes all the way back to 1995. So I chose Quebec in the craziest year, of course, the year of the referendum.
Arriving here, I knew absolutely nothing about it. But my first semester in CEGEP, first class, our teacher said, everybody take out sheets of paper and pen. We're going to have a quiz. The question is, what do you think of Bill 101? Everybody started writing, and I raised my hand and I said, I'm not sure what you're talking about. And you don't know what Bill 101 is. And he seemed to have taken it personally.
Before I arrived here, I know there was long, complicated history between the Anglophone and Francophone in Quebec. But in my mind, I thought it was in the past. It's in the history.
History is ephemeral and dependent upon what we choose to remember.
That was amazing. Wonderful project.
It's a wonderful project, and
Yeah.
we did have it under wraps when it was being shown at the film festival. But now, if you go to this webpage, whatwechoosetoremember.ca.
Yeah, if people can't see it,
Oh, there
you go.
Whatwechoosetoremember.ca, the
Yeah.
film, you can click on the link, watch the film, share it with your friends. And more importantly, we created the film as a series of group discussions. So each of the waves was a room full of people with the same experience.
And this is what I love. I saw all kinds of backgrounds come into one. And yeah.
Having the same people in the room did two things. One,
Yeah.
it enriched the conversation, because if you ask 10 people, why did your family come to Quebec? They'll
Yeah.
probably all say something similar. But once the first person has said the obvious thing, then the other people have to go deeper.
Right.
But also, if something is kind of touchy or controversial, like the whole Catholic school system, people might be reluctant to really put much emphasis on it, because they might think, well, maybe my grandparents were just obnoxious people that the Catholic Church didn't like them. But once they start talking about it and they see other people nodding their heads, they realize it was an actual thing. So we created it as a series of group discussions, and we really think that it should be shown as group discussions. So we're inviting people to organize screenings within their communities, within their circles of friends, and we'd be happy to participate and attend and ask questions. But what we choose to remember.ca.
On va continuer en français.
Oui, on va
poursuivre en français. Alors, votre projet, comme tu viens de mentionner, What We Choose to Remember, est dans le processus d'être sous-titré en français, OK? Et puis, comment vous pensez que la communauté francophone réagira à votre projet?
Ben, je savais qu'avec ELAN, on fait partie des communautés minoritaires des langues officielles du Canada.
Oui.
Donc, moi, j'étais auparavant le directeur général d'ELAN. Donc, à ce titre, j'ai rencontré beaucoup de communautés francophones au Québec. Je savais que ce serait intéressant pour eux de comprendre un peu mieux la dynamique linguistique au Québec. Je savais que mes amis fédéralistes trouveraient ça intéressant, surtout l'histoire des écoles. Je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de francophones.
Avec beaucoup de réservations, ça serait plus comme vraiment ouvrir les bras puis ils vont embrasser. Ouais.
De mieux se comprendre, de comprendre le passé pour mieux adapter pour l'avenir. Parce qu'on sait qu'il y a des problèmes, qu'on vient de dire, avec le français, pour protéger le français, mais comment? C'est quoi le problème exactement? Et
on fait quoi?
On fait quoi? Mais on ne savait pas comment les gens plus nationalistes réagiraient. Donc, au lancement du film, on a reçu un appel de José Legault, journaliste assez connu, assez nationaliste, qui voulait voir le film. Donc, on a envoyé le lien sous-titré et on a attendu pour voir le verdict. Qu'est-ce qu'elle en penserait? Et, d'après vous, qu'est-ce qu'elle pensait?
Positif.
Elle adorait le film.
C'est ça.
Justement parce que c'est un aperçu du communauté anglophone du jamais vu. Pour elle, dans les médias francophones, c'est toujours très négatif. C'est une gang de wasps, d'une élite. Puis le film
démontre...
Pas moi
qui le dis, c'est lui qui le dit.
Le film démontre que c'est pas du tout ça. Je dirais même que dans le film, même le premier groupe qui était surtout des gens qui viennent des îles britanniques, il y avait des gens blancs, des anglo-saxons moins. Beaucoup de gens se voyaient comme des Celtes, des Écossais d'Irlande. Ils se voient pas comme des anglo-saxons, comme des Celtes. Et j'étais très surpris qu'on avait énormément du mal à trouver des protestants. Il y avait beaucoup de catholiques. Donc, on n'a pas trouvé des élites, on n'a pas trouvé des white anglo-saxon protestants, on n'a pas trouvé le stéréotype classique. Puis aussi, José Legault a dit, dans les médias anglophones, on entend surtout les angry anglophones.
Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, ça? Parce que moi, je suis média anglophone. Donc, qu'est-ce que tu veux dire qu'on est frustré?
Ben, pourquoi? Ben, des angry anglophones, c'est une personne qui n'aime rien du Québec. Qui est toujours,
Oui.
Donc, les gens dans le film, c'est des gens qui aiment beaucoup le Québec. Ils ne comprennent pas toujours, mais ils ont choisi de vivre au Québec. Ils ont élevé des enfants au Québec. Donc, ils essaient de faire partie de cette communauté. Et c'est très dérangeant dernièrement avec la loi 96 que des gens se sont beaucoup moins aimés.
Est-ce que tu penses qu'il y a un manque aussi d'éducation? Puis c'est vraiment juste, des fois c'est juste ça, un manque d'éducation, isolation, les gens ils savent pas, ils connaissent pas trop l'histoire. Tu m'as montré dans le film le drapeau, puis même moi je le savais pas. J'avais peut-être un des 4.
Lequel?
Le
fleur de lys?
Yeah, c'est ça. C'est ça.
Je dirais qu'il y a
non, mais c'est triste, mais c'est vrai.
Il y a un manque d'histoire, puis aussi il y a une forme d'histoire qui est enseignée au Québec. Des fois, quand mes enfants étaient ados, ils revenaient de l'école secondaire, puis mon fils dirait, « You never believe what they're trying to teach us today. » Les anglophones sont toujours les méchants, les riches.
C'est vrai, vous avez raison.
Donc, il faut... Lorraine O'Donnell est dans le film, puis elle dit vers la fin du film que cette idée que tous les anglophones font partie de ce 1% méchant, c'est pas le cas. Il y avait 99% des gens qui étaient classe ouvrière, moyenne classe. Donc, c'est ça les vrais anglophones. Puis, c'était justement ça que José Legault a remarqué, que pour elle, qui a beaucoup travaillé dans les deux milieux, elle trouvait que le film était un portrait assez juste des gens qu'elle connaît. Les gens qu'on entend beaucoup moins que soit les séparatistes fâchés ou les angry anglophones.
Ben, encore une fois, the movie, well, the project, What We Choose to Remember, you can go and access it on whatwechoosetoremember.ca. Guy, Rex, Roger, the man behind this wonderful project. And now, so let's applaud him first. Thank you so much for your time, such an honor. And of course, now we are throwing it over to Lorraine O'Donnell.
Thanks, Catherine. Just to tell people you're very welcome to stay, to discover the projects, to circulate around, talk to people, have coffee, juice, tea. Thanks again to Lena Shumarova for your incredible project coordination, to Anna Houston for comms for the project, technicians and staff at Fourth Space, you took an incredibly complex event and made it smooth as silk. Betty Esperanza, who has managed to pull this off. Way to go, Betty. To the Secrétariat aux Relations avec les Québécois d'expression anglaise, and we've had William Flock here all day. Thank you, William. And last but certainly not least, it's been an absolute delight, Catherine Verdon-Diamond, to get to know you for your enthusiasm and buy-in from day one. Extremely grateful. Thank you and welcome to our club.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Alors, je vous remercie tout le monde vraiment de vous avoir joint avec nous. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It was very informative. I'm leaving here with a little bit more knowledge, and I hope that for you at home too, you are. And really to have so many different organizations, but all working for the same thing and making sure that we do all belong here. The English-speaking community right here in Quebec is really something that's wonderful. I'm seeing it from young ages, we saw it in the videos, all the way up to the older ages. You know, we're seeing seniors who are involved in doing this. And so really an honor for me to be taking part of this as a French-speaking, English, Black Canadian, mélangé, adopted, parents are white. It's a mismatch of really what Quebecers and Canadians and Anglophones are. So really, thank you so much. And hopefully we get to see you again next year. Thank you.